What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Season Gaming Bitcast, episode 309. I am your host, Ainsley Bowden, and today we have a full cast of characters for you today, including Elgato's number one spokesperson, Mr. Tie Guy Travis is here, ready to roll. How we doing, my friend?
Yeah, what's up, guys? Sorry I'm late again. You can blame the Elgato Corporation. May they burn in hell. What's up?
Getting us off on the right foot, of course. You doing all right, buddy? Camera good now?
Yeah. I mean, it's the usual issues. It seems like a weekly occurrence now, but we got through it, and yeah, happy to be here. Had a good week playing Diablo 4. Wait, am I allowed to say that? I don't know. Anyway, well, no, I was playing Diablo 4, not Vessel of Hatred.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
That's the main game. So that's what I've been playing. Very good.
I was also playing Diablo 4, not Vessel of Hatred.
Great. That sounds fun. I'm glad we're all on the same page here, and I'm really good at my job. Cool. Sweet. Welcome. Good morning, everybody.
And of course, the lawman is here. Hardcore Hogue is back with us. How we doing?
I'm doing great. My hardcore character survives, much to the chagrin of half of the chat here, but I'm very happy about that. I'm looking forward to Vessel of Hatred, which I have no knowledge of because I have not played it. But I'm excited.
Nice. Yeah, it's close, man. It's close. Next week we'll probably have other things to say, but for this week we are joined by none other than IGN's executive reviews editor, Mr. Tom Marks. How we doing, my friend?
Hello, I'm good. How are you? I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, man. Sorry you have to be here with the three of us, but you're here. We're excited to have you, of course. So yeah, this week we're going to be breaking down, obviously, PlayStation State of Play. We finally got one, and we finally got some kind of good games, good info from PlayStation, which is nice. We've got a new Legend of Zelda that has released we'll touch on. We got a demo for Metaphor ReFantasio, which was a great surprise out of TGS. We'll touch on that. PS5 Pro, we've got a few other things to touch on as well. And of course, with Tom here, we figure that we will also touch on some sort of a game review conversation. I know Travis and I have talked a lot about kind of review methodology on Bitcast and on the channel. But of course, it'll be good to get Tom's insights into, basically how much the publishers pay IGN for reviews and scores, all those important topics that we can cover while he's here. So
it'll be a hell of an exclusive, bro. You finally, after years, it's like spotting the Loch Ness monster. Finally,
Nessie, he's here. Yeah. All right.
I think the answer, if you ask the internet, is either not enough or too much, depending on the score and how it aligns with their opinion. So
yeah, probably true. So
a Starbucks employee and also like a millionaire. Basically.
Yeah, exactly.
But before we get to those things, of course, we've got to catch up on the usual stuff. So let's get these couple super chats and member comments out of the way early. Mr. Travis, hit us with them.
All right, Taozochi has been a member for 22 months and writes, "Sup chat Bitcasters, Wild Boy Travis will be on the loose today. Gotta hype him up before time. Lol."
Please don't do that. Please don't do that.
Wild Boy Travis is here. He's loving it. I don't know what any of this means. Yeah.
This is it. This is the Wild Boy version
this
right here.
As wild as I get.
This is as wild as Travis is. Pre-show, post-show, this is how he is.
Tal, thank you, my friend. Googleman,
he offers €10 and writes, "Fragpunk looks kind of fun, but Tanuki Pond Summer seems very hardcore. I mean, fishing in a video game? Who does that? Slitterhead is cute, though." All right, so a little background here, Tom. Googleman81, he comes into the chat every week to write a comment to confuse us. And
he's very good at his job.
Yes, really good at it. Every week, we're just like, okay. Thanks, Woman81.
Fragpunk is kind of fun. I have some concerns, though. I have checked that out, but it's still in development, so we'll talk more about that in the future. Slitterhead looks crazy and cute, obviously, being silly here. But Slitterhead looks great. Typical Japanese kind of horror. What the heck is Tanuki Pond Summer? Does anyone know?
It appears to be a fishing game, Ains.
Yeah, fishing game.
A hardcore fishing game, apparently. Okay.
Well, I think we're supposed to read, like most Googleman chats, this exactly the opposite of what he says. I think we've got concerns about Fragpunk. I think Tanuki Pond Summer is probably a cozy fishing game, and Slitterhead is anything but cute.
That's exactly how I interpreted it. Yeah, very good.
fair.
We're learning his language.
Slitterhead does sound like it could be a type of fish in a fishing game, though. I would believe that.
Yeah.
Very true. Yeah,
That's right.
Yeah.
When you catch a slitterhead in Tanuki's Pond Summer, you become a frag punk.
Imagine,
Oh my god.
imagine wanting Tanuki Pond Summer and buying Slitterhead though. Imagine that.
Google man, thank you, my friend. GK Bowles.
All right, GK Bowles offers $4.99 to write. Anyone else super pumped? Fort Monster Hunter Wild started fresh on World to get the juices flowing. Also, Trav, tell me a joke.
Preferably a funny one.
Yeah,
Go on.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to tell you guys a joke, but I don't want to get Ains demonetized, and all the jokes I know are extremely not good for cameras. So that's all
I want you guys to note that despite this being simulcast on my channel, Travis is not concerned about me being demonetized.
No, definitely not. No. Him, I try to get demonetized, so it's kind of like a angel devil on my shoulder situation. If I punish one, I punish the other. It's very delicate.
There you go.
Yeah. It's good times.
Well, not luckily, but Elu's not here, our resident Monster Hunter Wilds fanatic, so he's not going to comment. But yes, plenty of people are.
We have a Monster Hunter fanatic amidst us who has, I believe, done a preview of Monster Hunter Wild.
I did a hands-on of it a while back. Yeah, like a month or two ago. It does.
Go on, Tom. Go on.
I'm very pumped as well. I jumped back into Iceborne in Monster Hunter World for to kind of prep for that preview, and it made me remember how much I missed Monster Hunter and how much I was ready for the next one. And we just got a date for that. I think we'll probably talk about. So I'm very excited that there's a window that I can start clearing my schedule for.
As we've been joking, it's funny. We've been joking for a few weeks on this show about February already turning into that month again. And that got even worse this week. So, anyway, we'll talk
Tom
about
is our Monster Hunter expert. I think he reviews all of them.
I wouldn't say. I think Casey DeFreitas is our Monster Hunter expert. She's incredible at that game and plays a ton of. I'm a casual in that I started with World, right? That's where I think a lot of Monster Hunter fans now started. Casey has been playing basically every Monster Hunter since the beginning of time and is incredibly good at them. I do the reviews. Nowadays, I do most of the Monster Hunter mainline reviews, but she is the pro.
Gotcha. Yeah, we even played one of them together. Or it wasn't Monster Hunter, but it was what was that other game?
Something Wild Hearts, was that?
Wild Hearts, that's right.
Wild Hearts, yeah.
That was the EA knockoff Monster Hunter. That was pretty fun.
Yeah.
Wild Hearts is good. And it let you build things.
Yes, the building was cool.
I forgot about that. You did.
It was Fortnite Monster Hunter. It'd just be incredibly reductive.
Tal says, sir, I am a Monster Hunter fanatic. Well over 15,000 hours in the series, Tal. All right. Wow. We're going to talk on Discord because I got to get you some help.
Also, Rob Frawley II pops into chat to say the Tom R. Marks verse world expands.
GK Balls, there you go, my friend. Thank you for the super chat. Chris, $5 writes, Ains hockey season is almost here. 3 exclamation points for emphasis. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Opening nights next week. I'm excited, man. Very excited. Love hockey season. And a new hockey rink is opening like 5 minutes from my house, too. So I may actually be playing again soon. We'll see. So thank you, Chris. Appreciate you, man. Commander Shepard's here again.
Commander Shepard offers €2 and writes, this is my favorite podcast on the Citadel.
I like this. Where Bitcast is still rocking on the Citadel, getting played daily. You love to see it. So,
Shepard.
Hey,
Rex.
Yeah. Thank you, Shepard.
Nissa Hauer has been a member for 15 months.
Nice.
The new Zelda game is awesome. Who needs a sword?
Well, Zelda, as it turns out, but we could talk about that when we start talking about Echoes. But yeah, the new Zelda game is both awesome and horrifying, and I have a lot to say about it. So we'll get there in a second.
What a twist.
Yeah, horrifying is not the word I expected for Zelda, but okay, we'll touch on it. Nissa, thank you. Good to see you. Mr. Don Lionheart.
Don Lionheart offers $5 to write. Played and beat Mafia for the first time this week. It's fine. Great story. Gameplay is dated, but I played on classic difficulty. No plat plans. 32 days.
Dragon. It's a dragon.
A dragon. 32 days. Dragon.
Yeah, I don't know what emoji you'd use for age.
I think he's saying that these 32 days are dragging along, like they're taking too long.
I think he's saying Dragon Age is in about 32 days.
Can't be.
No? All right.
No, that's
Could
not
be.
it.
By
No,
the way, Don, I love Mafia. I love the whole Mafia series. And obviously, I like way story more than some others that review games. But Mafia has some of the best stories in gaming. So great story. Gameplay as dated is much better than fine to me.
You heard it here from Hogue Law. I love the Mafia.
Right.
Fair enough. Don, thank you, my friend. All right. And of course, before we start talking, we've got Tide's picks. Let's go ahead and get to them.
Oh, God.
We are on. Actually, I actually look decent for once because we are on the Enterprise this week.
Stupid.
Nice.
They just put Captain Kirk as Hogue. I hate this. It's so stupid. It's so dumb.
I'm
It's
a
so
handsome
dumb.
man, Travis. I don't know what to tell you.
AI is terrible. I'm a ginger. Doesn't even look like me. Ains that doesn't look like you. Hogue, I'm sorry. You don't
Travis,
look
that was
Captain
exactly
Kirk.
like Ains.
No.
At least I'm human this week. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm
that's
moving up.
true.
I'm
That's
human.
true.
So
Ains, yeah. AI
You just
was-
resent that I was given a captain's shirt.
Yeah, and I'm clearly going to die this episode. So at least there's some small justice. in this world.
Tom, we may have a full-time opening for you after this episode, so we'll talk about it. Ty, thank you as always. Appreciate it. Okay, so we had some games released this week. Yes, we did. I think Travis and I, for the most part, are tied up playing Redacted. So I don't have much to say on other games except for one small note on a game. So Tom, I'm going to start with you. Since you're the guest here, this is just kind of like whatever game you've been playing this week that been putting some time into, been enjoying. What you been up to, man, in the gaming space?
Ironically, played no Legend of Zelda this week because
I'm going to
that all
carry
happened-
this team.
Yeah,
that
Hope's got
happened
us.
all.
He reviewed it.
I reviewed it, so it happened all a week or two ago.
Oh, I see.
But I did play a lot of that, and am happy to talk about it. And
Yeah, please do.
excited about that. But then the other thing, I guess I'll just say the thing I've been playing sort of most consistently recently is Persona 3 Reload, which I'm playing for a different podcast. And I've been playing that very slowly because the podcast we do is in real time. So we play it the week of the game. We play in the real life week of the calendar.
Travis was telling us about this. Yeah.
It's a very silly idea. The podcast is called Take Your Time. I'm not trying to plug. It's just like literally what I've been playing consistently. And then I've been playing a couple things that are also redacted. But Persona, I'm a huge Persona 5 fan, and I'd never played any version of Persona 3. So it's been very fun to, a lot of people talk about how this is their favorite Persona or of those of the newest.
Yeah, I mean,
3 at
three
least.
is where the 5 model comes from.
Right. And a lot of people I know say that, like, the Tartarus randomized stuff is only okay, but the story is the best story in the games. And so we're finally, this is the funny thing is we've been playing it for 5-6 months at this point. And we're just getting to the good stuff. Like it's starting to ramp up into where the story is really getting going because they're not expecting you to take 5 months getting to this point.
Of course.
But yeah, I've been having a lot of fun with that.
Nice. So, I also love Persona. I played 4 and 5. I like them both, but I never played 3 either. So
3's so good.
Yeah, it's one of those same thing. I want to go back and play. But you reviewed Legend is. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say when we did that that quiz, I think I asked a Persona 3 question and nobody had played Persona 3. And I was like,
yeah. So you reviewed Legend of Zelda, Echoes of Wisdom. So Ho can comment as well because he said he's been playing it. But so let's start with that, Tom. So obviously a different type of Zelda game, very different from Tears of the Kingdom. First of all, I would say is what did you give it? What did you score it? What were your thoughts? And then talk us through kind of like what you thought of the game overall in terms of how it sits in the Zelda IP space.
Sure, yeah. So I gave it a 9.
Okay.
I gave it a 9 on IGN, and I thought it was fantastic. I had an absolute blast with it. It is such a cool fusion of Tears of the Kingdom, Breath of the Wild style, do anything you want, break the game, go ahead, we don't care, have fun, that mentality, but then mixed into classic dungeons with a boss key, boss door, usually some sort of not like traditional key item you get, but you get something in that dungeon that you could only get in that dungeon that then changes slightly how you interact with the world. The little bit more structure of those 2D Zelda games mixed with the freedom of the newer 3D Zelda games. And I think that is so exactly what I wanted from the Zelda series. I love Breath of the Wild. I love Tears of the Kingdom. I reviewed Tears of the Kingdom also and gave that a 10. And I love the freedom they've introduced, but also am one of those Zelda fans that missed dungeons and missed key items and missed a little bit of the structure of those early Zelda games, because the newer Zelda games are phenomenal. They're just like a little bit, they're a different thing to a certain degree. And not like, wildly, because exploration and freedom has always been in the DNA of Zelda since the very first game, but functionally. And so if this is sort of my big takeaway with Echoes, is the Echo part of it I had fun with, but could take or leave. But if this is the blueprint of how they're going to structure Zelda games in general going forward, I am so excited for future Zelda games, because this is sort of exactly what I want from the series, is the weird freedom plus this little bit more of structure that they had in those older games.
Nice. Very nice. Hogue, how are you feeling? You in a similar space? Different thoughts?
Yeah, the wonderful part about Echoes of Wisdom is the design, in my opinion. The Echoes are such a great idea. For those that didn't watch the previous videos or don't know what we're talking about here, the Echoes are that Zelda is your main character in this game. She primarily doesn't fight on her own. She collects echoes of objects in towns and monsters that get defeated by her. And she defeats those monsters primarily by calling in other monsters to fight for her on her behalf. But what it does is it makes essentially every new area, every encounter into a possibility for puzzle solving, because the monsters are not just fighting for her. There's certain spiders that essentially create ropes in the 2D dungeon space. And if you don't know Link's Awakening, this is essentially the same kind of split between overworld Zelda that you're expecting and kind of 2D interactions in dungeon space. So you can get like the ropes from Donkey Kong Jr., and you do it with spiders that you collect as echoes. And you're solving all of these little puzzles in the same kind of feeling way as you do in Tears of the Kingdom, which is, what do I have as tools and what can I do to get across there and get that treasure chest? And it really does take the design sensibilities of Tears of the Kingdom or Breath of the Wild and puts them in to a Link's Awakening type game. And it's a fantastic mix. I love the game. It has motivated me to play every day since I got it. But the horrifying part, the part that really bugs me, is I mentioned last week, is I was thinking that the frame rate fluctuations and performance of the engine that bothered me so much in Link's Awakening must have been handled by now. That this wouldn't come out if this had the same type of issue. Because when Link's Awakening came out, I thought we were on the verge of Switch 2 because it was so kind of fluctuating and broken that it really hurt my enjoyment of that game. And this one is as bad. You can feel it as soon as you get to the first town. And the problem that these two games have with their engine is primarily in that when you go into a smaller area, a dungeon, a room, the things that you're used to dealing with in Zelda, you can see what it's supposed to be performing at. And you're bouncing between that 60 frames and kind of solid performance and the overworld or towns that definitely doesn't have that throughout the game. So it creates my least favorite kind of engagement with a video game, which is it's constantly bouncing. You can't get used to either. And the game itself, I don't want to underrate because it's fantastic, but the performance on at least the current Switch, and I know this podcast will not be a place we talk about specifics of the Switch successor, but on the current Switch, it's just annoying in the way that it loses its ability to perform. And some of it seems unnecessary because there's shiny bits and parts of this engine that I think could be pared back a notch. Like if this were on PC, I would be looking for a dial to move back 1 dot or 2, and it would be fine. But they don't do that. They run it right to the edge, and it unfortunately creates a negative experience for me in playing it. But the overall game, the design, the thing that you are engaging with as a video game, fantastic. I could not be happier with this, and I love that choosing to be Zelda, choosing to have Zelda as your main character in this game has resulted in a design that requires them to solve problems and puzzles that I don't think the Zelda universe has engaged with before. How do you beat a monster if you're not really going to use a sword? How do you get past this thing if you don't have the same abilities as Link? And it's a lovely experience. It's just marred a little bit by the Switch power and the engine that this team has decided to use.
Yeah, and there's jumping off of that too, I don't disagree. The performance, I don't think I hit quite as awful of performance as some people are seeing for some reason. I definitely agree. It is at 60 FPS when you're playing docked, and then will kind of occasionally just constantly go below that. But what I never saw was like, I feel like Link's Awakening would have huge dips, and I don't think I ever saw huge dips, but I did see what you're talking about, which is just sort of all of the time it will not quite hit that 60 in the way you're hoping. And like you said, I do fully agree. That game came out 5 or 6 years ago. How have they not fixed this problem yet? How is this still a thing, right? Obviously the Switch hardware didn't get any better, but still,
yeah.
How have you not solved that yet?
Yeah, no, and I'm really looking forward to playing this game, like Link's Awakening, like some of the other games that kind of die because they are a little bit too ambitious on the Switch successor. But I wish that I didn't have to for this late generation game.
Yeah, but the thing you touched on that I totally agree with is that it didn't really occur to me until I was pretty deep into the game, where this game is called Echoes of Wisdom. And if you're a Zelda fan, you know that there are the 3 pieces of the Triforce are courage, wisdom, and power. And courage is Link, wisdom is Zelda, and power is Ganondorf, whatever, the evil entity. The thing that I really love about this game is exactly what you were saying, which is if the normal Zelda games are saying, we're built around Link, we're built around courage, you're going out and fighting monsters and adventuring. This game says, what if we built a game around the Triforce of Wisdom? And instead of being, there's still lots of combat, but instead of being focused on the combat, it is focused on how do you think yourselves out of this situation? And that is such an interesting, subtle little switch that really makes a big difference in a very cool way, while still fully feeling like a Zelda game. It does not feel like, I say this in my review, but it doesn't feel like Princess Peach Showtime, which all due respect to that game, isn't the next Mario game, right?
Yeah, I like Showtime, but it
is a Peach spinoff. Yeah. And this feels like the next Zelda game. You're just playing as Zelda, and it's more puzzly than it is combat-y. And I really appreciate that. I really appreciate that Nintendo is so willing to take risks with the Zelda series, because that is a game that's a series that very easily could just be cashing in every year or whatever, and they're not doing that.
Excellent.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic, and I don't want to undersell that. It just bugs me, and it might not bug you, person on the internet who is watching this that goes and tries it on their Switch. I can't promise things about frame rates or performance. I can tell you it bugs me, and I had mentioned it last week that Link's Awakening had bugged me. And it does a very similar kind of thing. And I, again, would dial it back a notch. But the devs pick what they want from the performance of these games. And they go one step more aggressive than I would like in this particular engine. And it's clearly the same kind of engine that they used for Link's Awakening. It's gorgeous. Hyrule is fun to walk around. It has a lot of different biomes, a lot of different things to discover. And like I said, since this ecosystem rewards you for finding any new item and any new monster, it always feels like you're going and getting a key item, or you're going and getting something that can solve the next problem. It's a wonderful design. And I'm actually even more happy with the game as a game than I thought I would be seeing the original video for it, or when I was excited about it as it came out. So if this at all interests you, you should definitely check it out.
Also worth noting that your mileage may vary where Switches are concerned. I own 3, and they all have very different performance problems. Like,
interesting.
the OLED one, like, I've never had any problems with it. Even on like the Pokemon Acreus one, it was like kind of okay. Like, I didn't see a lot of the problems, but my super early one, especially the one that I reviewed Cooking Mama on that got bricked by whatever it was wrong with that software, that one can't run anything. Like, you run any game and it just
did that, Travis.
Like
You killed the Switch for Cooking Mama.
Yeah. They cooked my Switch is what they did. That mama just deep fried it. But yeah,
Well,
so
if you
yeah,
are
your
interested in
mileage may
cooking,
vary.
you
I
get to
think
make a lot of smoothies in the new Zelda, so get excited.
my theory is that the Switches have some sort of like very subtle changes based on what year you bought them or how long you've been playing on them or something. But like my OLED like very clearly runs games better than some of my older Switches. So I don't
Well,
know.
there's also that's the thing with phone performance too. Like it's the reason Apple tunes down, or it's the reason they say that they tune down phones over time as your phone gets older, is because as your battery wears down and gets older, it's not able to power the hardware quite as well, and so they tune down the speed of the phone so that the battery can keep up with it. Essentially, I believe is like the logic that they have.
Interesting.
So it could be also that a 7-year-old Switch is just worn down a little bit more and might not run quite. This is just all speculation. I literally don't know, but based on what I know about kind of similar tech, that could be something. I also think that this is one of those classic internet problems of everyone has different standards and plays games different ways. So
Sure.
like, I think I noticed that this game was running. I was playing on an OLED. I noticed it ran worse for me in handheld mode, right? And if you're a PC gamer who's used to 120 FPS smooth with a 4080 card or whatever, and you're playing in handheld mode on a launch Switch, that's going to be way worse for you than if you're used to playing on fidelity mode on a PlayStation 4 and then you go to a docked OLED. It's not like the jump is just not going to be as, so people can be having conversations about the same performance of a game and have wildly different experiences, and both of those experiences be correct because they just have different contexts and they have different tolerances and all that stuff.
Yeah, I think that's fair for sure.
So we have a courage game, we have a wisdom game. What's the power game like?
You want the
Hyrule Warriors?
Is that, yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Hyrule Warriors
It's
like
fight all the time, punch,
fight
go.
all the time. I could also see maybe an ARPG where you play as Ganon and just smash boys apart. That'd be a good one.
I think if they made a Ganondorf power game, it would be like DMs. It would be like Devil May Cry style. It would be Platinum is making that game,
sick.
And you're juggling fools with a giant sword as Ganondorf.
Wait, now I want to play this game.
Might be waiting a while.
It
Yeah.
might be the
Switch
announcement
handle.
game for the Switch
You
too.
know.
You don't know.
Yeah, you never know.
They made Ganon hot now, so everyone wants him.
Wait, which game is he hot in?
He's hot in Tears of the Kingdom. They made
Which
Ganondorf
game is
hot.
he not hot in, Travis?
never-
Come on.
I never met Ganon in Tears. of the
Don't
Kingdom.
act like you haven't been to those sites. Come on.
Jesus.
Well, that's great. I'm glad to hear. Ongoing joke. I'm not the biggest Zelda fan, but I'm glad to hear it's very good. It seems that people are loving it. So good stuff. Love to hear it.
What I want out of a Zelda. It really is.
Good. Fantastic. Well, one of the biggest surprises this week, which I'm actually sad I haven't gotten to check out because it's one of my most anticipated games by a pretty large margin, is Metaphor Refantasio. And we got a surprise demo drop of this with progress carrying to the main game. Developers, take note.
Prologue
This.
demos are the best. Shadow
Do
Drop
this.
prologue demos for games I'm excited about. That's just fantastic.
No doubt. No
or
doubt.
Fantasio.
Hogue. Killing me.
Hey.
But anyway, I know in particular, I think actually, given what Tom said about Persona 3 and Persona 5, I'm sure all four of us are really pumped for this game. So, Hogue, we were talking just before we got started that you did have some time to play this demo. So how you feeling after playing it?
I was not expecting, even though this was one of my most exciting games coming out in the near future, to like it as much as I did. Metaphor is a Persona game in a fantasy world, but it is also a number of enhancements to that Persona format. So if you are at all interested in any of that, this is going to be a great game for you. It is doing some things that you can already tell just from the prologue and from the demo with its story that are going to be odd and going to be interesting in that same Persona way. And it has a not Velvet Room. It has some not Personas for you to find. It has some various things that if you like Persona, especially Persona 5, you're going to be happy with this. But it also has kind of an old school anime aesthetic. It reminds me of like Lodos War, or in terms of games, it really reminds me of an old game called Elemental Gearbolt, which I'm sure is going to be immediately referenced in people's heads just by my saying it.
Of course.
It's a deep kind of dark fantasy with the depth of characters and depth of combat system that you'd find in a Persona. So I am even more excited about it now. October 11th can't come soon enough. I'll still be knee deep in Vessel of Hatred, so who knows how this is going to go. But I could not be more excited about it. It feels like it's got the potential for a Game of the Year type game for me.
Fantastic. Yeah, you just reminded me that we get Vessel of Hatred, Metaphor, and Silent Hill all the same week, which is like, come on, man. What are we doing? I don't have time for this. But I'm very excited. So that's good. I will download this, I guess I might as well just wait at this point because I'm not going to have time to play it prior to release.
It's a long demo. I'll tell you that.
Actually, that's a good question. How much time have you put into it? How long is the demo?
It's hard to tell if the timers are accurate on any of these things, but I believe I was just over 5.
5 hours?
Oh,
Okay.
that's a long demo.
That is, yeah.
It's also because it takes, like, if you did even an hour-long demo, if that demo ended after an hour, I feel like you would not get a good sense of everything that game is doing. So,
honestly, it cuts off right when you're getting into like, oh, all right, let's roll.
Yeah.
So
probably by design.
It's a good demo.
Yeah. Okay. Tom, are you just as pumped for this one?
Yeah. I mean, I'm maybe a little more cautiously optimistic because it is so weird. And I don't mean that in a derogatory manner. I just mean that they're taking some swings, right? They are not wild, like they're not just playing it safe with Persona but fantasy, right?
Mm-hmm.
It is incredible, like he was saying, it's incredibly similar in a lot of ways, and very smartly evolved in a lot of ways, but the setting change is immense, and there are some mechanical things that are pretty different, and I wouldn't be shocked if something in there doesn't quite land in the way that Persona does for me, but I also am very impressed with what I've seen so far, really enjoying it, really excited, like very excited to play more. And so I'm really, it's one of my more anticipated games, definitely through the end of the year, but in the nearish future in general.
I want to agree with Tom on that. Actually, one of the things that I had going through my head while I was playing this game is that this is going to lose some people.
Right.
Like, some plot points and some stuff that you have to go through. This is a different vibe. Persona high school students being super cool and doing heists is different from what this thing is going for in such a significant way that it still works for me. That's still my vibe. I still dig old school anime and Lodos War and talking about whether or not these races can survive on this crazy fantasy world. And then also what really hasn't been mentioned too much is that it's a literal metaphor. They are definitely going across universes and multiverses, and they want to talk about some stuff, man. And that is definitely going to come up more after the demo. But it is an actual metaphor of fantasy. And they hit that pretty hard from the start of the game. And that's also going to throw some people because it's essentially a meta context to the story that I think is probably only going to really show itself more towards the middle to end of the game. And so I would not be surprised if we lose some folks and say, well, that's not Persona 5. That's not what I want out of my games. It happens to be what I still like in terms of vibe. And I think they're going to do some really cool stuff with the story they want to tell. But it's a different feel. And you get that right from the music. The music is awesome, but it is weird.
Yeah.
And
it's not acid jazz anymore.
It's not.
Fair enough. Super excited for that one. So I'm glad to hear it's I like weird. So I'm glad to hear that it's both impressive and weird. I am all in on that for
It'll
sure.
make you think.
Yeah.
And again, I'm really glad that they are taking those swings. I'm glad that they're saying, sure, let's get weird with it and let's just try something new. And we're not, this isn't Persona 6. Let's just do stuff and see how, try to have fun and experiment and be creative because, that's sort of rarer than it should be nowadays with how risky making a game is.
No, and to me, it really feels like you can see how different you can still tell a story with like medieval technology and kingdoms and whatnot, and that we do sometimes get stuck a little bit in the same stories that we have heard before. And this is taking a lot from dark fantasy. It is taking a lot from 80s and 90s aesthetics. But there are still kingdoms and kings, and there still are crystals and magic and stuff that you would think of with Final Fantasy, but told in a very different way. And that to me is super exciting.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, Lucius commented just now. He said he likes it more than Persona so far.
It's a different vibe. So that
so far.
You might gain some people there too. But if you
if you don't like taking
again,
quizzes in class on a regular basis, maybe this is more your style or your speed.
You'd think that. You'd think there wouldn't be quizzes in class on a regular basis. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. Well, fantastic. All right, so two big games there. Travis, I just made an assumption that because of Redacted that there hasn't been a lot of time for anything else like me. But anything that you want to call out from a game perspective that jumps out, or have you been kind of fully engrossed?
Yeah, that is a pretty good assumption. I've obviously been all week playing a game I'm reviewing that is under embargo, and a lot of it. But
yes.
I've made some time for some other games. I played more Star Wars Outlaws, which I am just like inching my way through. As a Star Wars mega fan, it's starting to get better. I have a robot companion now. It's pretty cool.
I hear people like him.
Yeah, he's a commando droid from the Clone Wars.
I told you, ND5 feels like Naughty Dog 5 to me. It's an Uncharted reference, but I do love him.
Yeah, that's a pretty cool thing. We haven't seen a commando before with a personality, so it's kind of cool. It's starting to get good, so I'm still enjoying my time with that. This is probably going to be one of those games that I'm still talking about in December as I work my way through it very slowly. But yeah, I'm doing that, and the Miles Edgeworth game is another one I'm just very slowly working my way through. Yeah, it's good times. But yeah, I've been mostly playing a game. I also logged onto Satisfactory again, which is a horrifying statement.
I was gonna ask if you burned out on that completely.
Yeah, like IGN gave you heroin, Travis.
Yeah, I mean that game is like I open it to just like, so Rob Frawley, we have a server for it, and he is in there doing stuff, and so every once in a while I'll just check in to see how my child is doing. What is it growing into? And he's made huge improvements to our world. It's kind of crazy, but I will say he has kept Spaghettisburg a mess, which I really appreciate. So by the way, for those of you who don't know, I just have to talk about this because I didn't get to talk about it on the show. So if you know this game Satisfactory, you really are encouraged to make like clean factories that look like they make sense, and the community is really in on that. Like they share their setups, and if you look on Reddit, there's like these beautiful foundations and everything's super efficient, and like it's just like everything is min-maxed to the nth degree. And I did not play that way, partially out of necessity because doing that takes incredible amounts of time, and I was trying to beat the game so that I could finish a review, and so my world was absolutely crazy. But as part of the review, I included sections in the video where I'm very clearly like, there's this one part where I'm connecting a conveyor belt, and I have an opportunity to connect it in a logical way, and then I scoot over to the illogical way, and where it's clipping through another conveyor belt, and then I go back and forth like I'm maybe I should do it right, and then I go no, and I do it the wrong way. And I included that clip in there just to like annoy people, and I have been dying at the comments because our YouTube, it's literally people like going, no, what are you doing, and like losing their mind over it. And it has brought me no end of joy. I've been logging on to YouTube like every week to just read the comments and see people lose their mind, and it's beautiful. So I just wanted to throw that out there, that like people's reaction.
Troll guy Travis.
Well, what's funny is the Satisfactory community is very troll heavy, including the developers trolling their players, and so it feels to me very much in like the tradition of Satisfactory. But man, it's brought me no end of joy to see people react to the way I chose to play this game, which was like an absolute savage. And hey, it worked, man. Don't hate the player. I got through the campaign, and it was fun.
See, I want a Travis YouTube Shorts reel of just playing games slightly wrong.
Yeah. That honestly, that's what I like to do. I like to break games. You know, you give me like something like Tears of the Kingdom where you give me a chance to play, and I'll just go out of my way to play it in a way that I wasn't expecting people that I think the developers were expecting me to play it. And it's so much fun, man. To me, it's like a very pure way to play games. Satisfactory. I mean, I don't think there's a right or wrong way to do it, but the people who are hardcore in that community, they very much have strong opinions about it, and it's just been so fun to see them. In one sense, it really does reinforce the negative IGN reviewer, like, you know, stereotype where it's like, oh, the IGN doesn't know how to play games. But in the other sense, piss off. I had a freaking fun time building a monster.
But to the credit of the Satisfactory community, that community is pretty positive in that I feel like you haven't gotten death threats over that. It's just people sort of laughing with you about how terrible what you're doing is.
So
right?
Some people were genuinely upset, but then I commented in the YouTube and just like that I was enjoying the fact that they're upset. And then somebody was like, dude, he is trolling us. And then all the comments after that were positive. There were like people being like, okay, he's just being an ass. Got it.
But that's what I mean is like the spaghetti building style is not optimal, but it is also a way to play the game. And they sort of, they recognize that, right?
Yeah,
they're gonna make fun of you mercilessly because you deserve it, but they're not gonna, you know, completely write off the whole review because you didn't use foundations.
Yeah, I did not use foundations. I also learned that there's a streamer in the community or YouTuber who intentionally builds like the craziest, most spaghetti factories, and a lot of people in the comments were being like, "Dude, you're just that guy. You're just building. You're that streamer." So yeah, it was cool. But anyway, I've been playing a little bit of Satisfactory, not enough because I know if I play more than 5 minutes, I'm never gonna stop, and so I have been trying to not jump in there. But that game is super cool, man, and I just want to reiterate what I said a couple weeks ago that everybody should give that game a shot. It's super cool.
Yeah, so funny enough, a couple comments from last week's show that I forgot to highlight early on here. So one of them about that. So Rain Angeles says, I've not touched Factorio or Satisfactory yet, but there's also the Rift Breaker, Mindistry, and the early access Desynced. He says, which are both slimmer factory games. He said, Desynced also has a scripting system for custom operations of the factories and worker bots that I've only scratched the surface of due to being rather out of practice with programming. But I could imagine that getting really cool because I know Rob, who you played Satisfactory with, is at least a dev or coder in some form. So I could see people kind of really losing some time with that kind of stuff, like order of operations and things with their factories.
Yeah. If Satisfactory is like either too complicated for you or just like you prefer more action, I also did review Rift Breaker and really recommend that game. That game is super cool. And when I reviewed it, it was a little bit more unstable and had like frame rate issues and bugs. And I hear that those have largely been cleared up. So just want to give another shout out for Rift Breaker. That game is super fun and kind of scratches that Satisfactory itch, but it's like a lot more combat. Your base is constantly getting attacked. It's kind of got that tower defense stuff to it, which Satisfactory doesn't have at all.
You got to kill a lot of Xenos in Rift Breaker. It's true.
Yeah, it is. You got to squish those Xenos in your mech suit. That game is super awesome.
Cool.
The only thing I have a problem with Rift Breaker is that it reminds me of Vagrant Story and that we don't have one right now. It's a personal problem.
Yeah,
doesn't necessarily affect you.
It's a good game.
Yeah, so similar to you, Travis, been just a lot of time. Very little sleep this week.
How much time?
As much as I can afford, basically.
Did you get to the? Did you do the end stuff? You got the end game?
I've only played solo, but I'm
all right. As the contract lawyer here,
yeah, I'm at that spot. Anyway, so I did want to quickly mention 30 seconds on just, you know me, I'm always playing my competitive shooters and competitive games, and so season 4 of the finals came out. I've highlighted this game before.
Yes.
Came out this week. It's got some good updates, some kind of cool stuff within the game that kind of ties to how the game is structured. So I hadn't played that since season 2. So getting back to it's been rather fun. I just forgot how chaotic that game is. So if you do enjoy kind of more skill-based, kind of chaotic FPS games, and you haven't checked out the finals, I would give it a shot. It is chaos in the best way. just flying around the map and blowing everything up in your path and buildings collapsing on your head. And
you don't want me to like this game. The last time I liked a shooter, it didn't turn out well.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So, and then season 2, I think, of X Defiant came out, Ubisoft shooter. So that's out as well. But yeah, some good updates in terms of kind of the, the live service shooter space that I've been checking out.
Ubisoft, do we have a section today where we're going to talk about Ubi being weird or no?
What specifically, their delays?
We did. Well, I think he means the comments.
They got emergency investor calls. They got inside investigations. They got all sorts of stuff we could talk about, but it doesn't look like it's on our list.
We did not have that on the list. No, obviously we know that Shadows get delayed to February, along with every other game coming out in the next year. Don't
you move, Atlas.
But no, I didn't have that. So we'll see how we trend here, because you know how we go on the show. We can easily go 3 hours plus, and I know it. So before we get caught up on super chats and head over to our state of play discussion, I want to throw back, because Hogue, I know you always like to mention a couple other games, or Tom, if you have any other games to mention. Hogue, I'll start with you, Hogue. Give us Hogue's notes.
Sure.
Hogue's notes. Now it's time for Hogue's notes.
I really should commission a better jingle, shouldn't I, folks?
Yeah, we gotta do something about this.
I have, unlike the rest of the panel, not been playing any Redacted this week. And so I have been enjoying a lot of the new releases in what I really was starting to think of as interesting game designs that were trapped by technology remastered. And so I
Horizon Zero Dawn.
I played a lot of Dead Rising this week. And I played a lot of Epic Mickey this week, both of which are really weird designs that have been brought up into 2024. And I think we're done well in bringing them up to 2024. So I like both Dead Rising, the Deluxe Remaster, which is really a remake as best I can tell, and the Epic Mickey Remaster. So if you're interested in either of those games, I think they both turned out pretty well. The one that I really wanted to call out from a Hogue's Notes perspective is a game that I haven't heard anybody discuss in, I think, any capacity, and it's called Beyond Galaxyland. It is a turn-based RPG in which you are a character that is living on Earth and are taken by a corporation, which may or may not be good or evil, to a solar system called Galaxyland that has been created to house your people after the end of your planet, as well as the aliens that are also having their planets end from an alien virus. And if you are interested in this game, it's pixel art. It's fantastic looking. It has wonderful, interesting music, and a combat system that is reminiscent of, but not identical to, kind of Persona and Metaphor and some other things I was playing this week. But it also features an intellectually up-jumped guinea pig named Boom Boom, who wears a Han Solo vest and shoots people with a laser pistol. So get excited. You can fight pixel dinosaurs with your intelligent guinea pig and his laser pistol in Beyond Galaxyland, which is a game that I have thoroughly enjoyed this week.
I have to say, Beyond Galaxyland is maybe the worst name for a video game I've ever heard. First of all, Galaxyland makes no sense. That's like saying World Place. It's like, that's just farther than World Place.
I'm not saying it's a great title. Sometimes indies struggle to get seen. One of the reasons I like Hogue's Notes is that I do go through a number of games that I would not mention here or recommend here, so that I can get to games like Beyond Galaxyland, which has a lot of really interesting storytelling. Reminds me of kind of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. It's got a lot of that droll sense of humor, but with excellent pixel art, wonderful music, and an interesting battle system. I don't know. It hasn't come into its fore yet after a few hours of play, but I do recommend it for people to check out. I wanted folks to know about it because I hadn't heard anybody mention it anywhere, and maybe IGN's reviewed it already. Maybe other places have reviewed it, but I hadn't seen it. And I suspect strongly it's a one person or small team type game. But it is really, really pretty to look at if you like that kind of pixel art.
What's it on?
Yeah, what platform? Yeah,
I am playing it on Switch. I know it's also available on the PlayStation.
It's on Steam as well.
Okay. Cool.
pick
Beyond
it up.
Galaxy Land. All
You
right.
know, I like to give the Hogs Notes games a try every once in a while. Let's see what this one's like. Turn-based? Let's do it.
Fair enough, Hogue. Thank you. Tom, anything else you want to mention before we jump over to State of Play?
Nothing that jumps to mind.
Cool. All right. Let's get caught up on some super chats here.
Aim, can I make one more comment?
Absolutely not.
Well, you
Okay.
have more Hogs Notes?
That's fair. It's not a hope note, really.
Go for it.
It's a game I've mentioned before. It's a game that is published by Nintendo, so it's
If you
well-known.
say Skull and Bones, this is going to become a 3-person show.
Ains, have I pushed on the Skull and Bones line in the recent past? You've set the boundaries clearly for me. I love Skull and Bones. I am playing that while you play Redacted.
Tom,
I'm not going to talk
More
about
people like Skull and Bones. It's not just me. See?
it. I love Skull and Bones. It's going to be on my game.
Why
of the
did I
year
break
list.
you? Why did I mention it?
Yeah, this is all you, Ains.
I know,
Well,
I
if
know.
you're talking
If you're
about
gonna
Skull and
bring it
Bones
up.
for a second. The other thing I wanted to mention is that I have been really enjoying the depth and layers of MEO, the Smiling Man, the Famicom Detective Club game that was released a month or so ago. And this is a style of game and mystery solving that is different than Ace Attorney. Ace Attorney is wild and wacky. This is a lot more like, I hesitate to say a real detective story because it's supernatural and there's all sorts of stuff that's happening in it, but it's a lot more trying to present it as realistic than something like Ace Attorney. And it reminds me of some of the older detective games that I used to play on like the Atari ST or the TurboGrafx and all these really, really recent systems that one could play a video game on. And I think it's a really well done story with really interesting characters and layers that is constantly making you think about the mystery at hand. And I wanted to bring it up again because it's a slow play, but it's really enjoyable. And I don't think it's gotten enough credit for that.
Okay. Yeah, it feels like there's quite a few games in that space that with the year being so busy and just gaming in general being so busy, they're just getting overlooked, which is a shame, but okay, cool. All right, Travis, let's get caught up on Super Chats. We got Mr.
Let's
Game
do
Positive here.
Game Positive offers $6.99 in Canada bucks to write. To give a game a 10 at SG, we need to sacrifice a kitten to the blood god plus defeat Ains in Mortal Kombat. What is the process like at Igen?
There
The
you go.
same. Yeah.
I fight a lot of people.
Specifically Ains. We have him on retainer. Yeah.
You lost that fight over Pentiment, huh, Ains?
Yeah, I lost that one. I went down I folded pretty easy on that one.
Leanna fights pretty hard. Looking at
Yeah,
this thing.
she's just way tougher than she looks. Yeah,
Yeah.
without a doubt.
What is
yeah,
the
so
process like? Yeah.
Not much different. No, it's Travis knows well, my job as an editor for reviews editing is to make sure that the argument you want to make is sound and poke holes into it until it stands up to, make sure you're communicating your ideas clearly, all that stuff. So if somebody wants to give a 10, the only thing that really changes is that there's maybe like a little bit more, there's a slightly higher level of scrutiny to make sure that the argument you're making is sound, right? And that doesn't mean quote unquote correct, right? Because reviews are opinions. So I could highly dislike a game that somebody wants to give a 10, and that's fine. I'm not going to stop them from doing it as long as they can convince me that they think it should be a 10, right? So there's not a huge amount. There's not some different sort of thing that happens. The only maybe like procedural thing that's slightly different is that we try to get as many people who are playing the game to also read the review and give it a gut check, essentially, right? So we put more eyes on it. We put a little bit more, we hold it to a slightly higher standard in terms of the edit process, but there's not like, it doesn't have to go through like an approval or like, there's not like a limited number of 10s we can give out. There's nothing like that. It's the same review process. We just sort of like really make sure that the argument is being made is all.
But can I go back a step? Because I've always been interested in this, right? So you're the lead on reviews, Tom.
Yeah.
And you've got other reviewers come in, rate a game. Maybe you've played some of it, maybe not. But you think that you wouldn't agree with that score personally, and that's got to be hard to separate yourself from as a human being. Do you find any issues with that in your job? And if a reviewer is constantly coming to you with something that you think is different from what your opinion would be, does that change your opinion of the reviewer or anything else with respect to like whether they're given jobs in the future? I'm curious about all of that, because at the end of the day, when we look at ads and internet things, we see generally dash IGN, right? Not dash Travis Northrup or dash whoever might be the reviewer on something. So these really do speak to you as an organization. And I can imagine it would be difficult if you thought that somebody was constantly coming to you with something, even if they argue it well because they are a lawyer at heart or what have you. At the end of the day, if you feel they're not representing the way you would want these games to be represented.
Yeah. So the first
very
part of that,
small question, Hogue. Very small question.
The first part of that question, this idea of does that affect me? Does that my bias come into it? Definitely, like that's just something I'm, I put a mind to is making sure that my opinion, that I'm not, there's the risk of you becoming the reviewer if you're touching too much, and you don't want that. We steer very clear of that. We want to make sure that these reviews are the reviewer's opinion. Travis probably has seen me leave notes a lot of the time where like I'll suggest a line or like suggest a rewording of something, and then I'll highlight it and be like, feel free to fully change this. Like, feel free to reword this. I do not want to put words in your mouth. This is just sort of a direction you could go. And that's sort of the same thing. I think that, again, it really comes down to if I think the argument is sound, right? If they can argue something that I disagree with, and as long as I think that they're making that argument well, I'm not going to stop them from saying that thing. But I will, is part of the process, if I really strongly disagree, say, hey, I felt this way about that thing. Like, did you consider that angle? How do you feel about that? Could you maybe work in that as a response to someone like me ahead of time who would disagree with you? So we use my disagreement to make their argument stronger rather than change their argument. I think is how we try to go about that. The second part of that, of like, if someone is let's say wildly off base consistently or something like that.
Well, I wouldn't say off base. I just say disagree with you on this.
Sure,
right?
Sure. Or even not disagreeing with me, but disagreeing with public opinion at large, right? Maybe they're off the Metacritic score consistently, which again, I don't think is a fault of them as a reviewer. It just says that they have different tastes than the quote unquote mathematical average that this game is getting.
God knows my numbers would be off the mathematical average on a lot of games.
I will couch this in saying I don't think that happens super consistently. I cannot think of reviewers, maybe one, that I have ever had consistent, notable disagreements with, right? So it's not really a situation that has come up in my 7 years at IGN, at least. But I also do think that there is situations where, yes, like if somebody is, you are not wrong that when somebody reviews a game at IGN, it is their review, it's their opinion, but also it does represent IGN in the public eye. And if somebody just is, really what it comes down to is not just me, but like if our entire staff is consistently disagreeing with the reviewer, then we might not use them as much or change that reviewer. This is hypothetical, right? Because again, the situation has not come up very or often at my time. We might change reviewers just because like that opinion isn't reflecting our staff, and then our staff has to go out and, to a certain extent, they don't have to be lockstep agreeing with that review, but they're represented by it as well, right? And they're going to get angry people on Twitter tweeting at them no matter what. And so I could see a situation, where somebody just is like really not quite just in line with the IGN editorial sort of like ethos, then maybe we wouldn't be looking to use them as much because they're just not in line with what we are trying to do. But I don't think I would ever then say, like, I want to be clear about, again, that has not happened in my time. And
I'm not trying to get Travis to lose his job. I understand.
But B, I also don't think that, again, I want to be really clear about the fact that, like, I don't think that would mean that reviewer is wrong in any way.
Yeah.
Right. Their opinions are still completely valid to their opinions. And if they're making those arguments, well, I support them in thinking that.
Yeah. I will say this about having an editor who has played the game is that it makes the review a lot better because, if Tom has no idea about the genre or game or whoever's doing my edits, like it's usually just like cosmetic changes to like the grammar or maybe tell me about this or like asking clarifying questions. But if they've played the game, the notes are way more in depth and like, you didn't talk about this thing or actually technically it works this way. And so I like it when the editor has played the game because it makes it just, makes me feel like the review is going to turn out stronger and the notes are going to be more in depth. So definitely like on the Satisfactory review where like Tom and I played the entire thing together, it was like, all right, yeah, like it's just nice to have another pair of eyeballs and to remember stuff that I completely forgot, where he was like, oh, you should talk about this thing. And I'm like, oh my God, I completely forgot we even did that because we played 100 hours and all that stuff. So
Right.
yeah, that's my perspective as somebody who's just going through the edits.
Nice. Good context, guys. Thank you, Tom. Thank you. All right. Let's continue with the super chats here.
Don Lionheart offers $5 to write. Generally, I agree, Hogue, but it walked the line very closely, closer than I'd like, to the point where gameplay hindered story. Could be because classic. He's talking about the Mafia series.
He's talking about Mafia 1 in particular, and he's saying because of the classic difficulty. And I do want to say, when I talk about Mafia now in 2024, I'm talking about their remaster, not the original version I played on whatever level of chip that I was playing it on back in the day. So I don't know what version Don played, and certainly on classic mode, it is very lethal. And there are levels that even in the remaster, they don't quite remaster probably enough. But I do love the Mafia games. And I think they have some of the best stories in gaming, as I've said.
Yeah. Don, thank you. Lucius
Augustus offers $2 to write. Balenciaga Ganon was making people thirsty. Balenciaga?
I have no idea.
That is the correct pronunciation. Yes. Balenciaga.
Balenciaga, what would that be?
I think it's a fashion thing, right?
It is.
Okay.
That's
something I know an immense amount about.
It's a bag. Yeah, it's like a designer bag company.
Oh, okay.
And shoes, I think maybe too.
Oh, there's a fashion Ganon in the house. I see. I did not know. Which game is this in, or is this merely a thirst?
I believe Thirst Ganon would be Breath of the Wild, but maybe not.
No, Tears of the Kingdom.
Tears of the Kingdom. He's hot. Man,
Yeah,
I never met the guy.
People aren't hot for Calamity Ganon.
Oh God! All right.
I like him in Wind Waker. He has very like zaddy energy. That's my take. Yeah.
Man, we're gonna have a heck of a show when Date Everything comes out, Ains.
Oh my God, I'm so excited. Which, by the way, it looks like we're not reviewing that, right, Tom? Are we?
Unfortunately, probably not, but we'll see.
So I'm just gonna have to talk about it in my personal timeline and be like, guys,
it'll just be a 10,000 word Travis blog post about dating.
It'll probably be like 90% written by my wife, and then me annotating it. I'll be the editor on her review of that game. So yeah, I'm excited for that. I'm gonna date everything, guys.
If her approach was to date everything, it does explain the marriage a little bit, Travis.
I mean, certainly when we met, she was dating everything. It's kind of crazy. It's wild. It's wild, dude. Wild boy Travis.
Moving on. Alex. Thank you, Lucius.
Alejandro Segovia.
Do you know that's Alex, Travis?
I know. He offers $4.99. Shout out to Tom. I'll never forget his Celeste review, which spotlighted a game I didn't know I desperately needed at a dark time in early 2018. Thank you, Alex. Alex is, by the way, a good friend and also freelance reviewer. He writes for Bitcast. Good times.
Or Season Gaming, not actually the show, but yes.
Oh, right. Yeah, I forgot. There's two games. Sorry.
We don't review games at the Bitcast. That's
we don't? Oh, man. What have I been here for? All right. Yeah, sorry. Season Gaming, that one. That's the one. I'm super good at this.
Thanks for the kind words, though. That review, I gave that game a 10. That is like my most brought up review to this day. People really, that one clicked with people in a big way, which is cool to see. That game
I
is
did
phenomenal.
not read your Celeste review, but a 10 is correct. I have every achievement in that game. That game is sick.
Yeah, it's incredible.
I do think it brought it to my attention. So I do think that the
Nice.
IGN 10 is the one for Celeste. There are a couple of reviews like that, right? Like I remember the Last of Us 9 from IGN. I remember Travis refusing to give Skull and Bones the 10 it deserved. No.
Jesus, 10, a masterpiece. Come on, Hogue.
I actually wouldn't go higher than 9.
You know how much
on
shit I get for giving it a
too low.
7? I give that game like the 2 games I get the most shit for giving a 7 are Skull and Bones and Concord. And
I know you get crap for giving it too high a score. That's why I brought it up here, because it's obviously too low a score.
The Concord thing, real quick, the Concord thing bugs me because somebody tweeted at like a tweet of mine from a week ago being like, why did you give Concord a 7? And I didn't realize that people were holding on to that so much. And it drives me insane.
Some people are.
Anybody would think that, like, that people think or connect this idea that because a game failed financially means that it must have been a bad game it's such flawed thinking. Tons of incredible games fail all the time. And the idea that Concord shuts down means that a 7 was too high is just, it does not track for me in any way, shape, or form.
I also think that a game that is supposed to be a flagship game being good, not great, which is what a 7 means at IGN, is kind of a bad thing when your competitors are, Overwatch, which a lot of people say is like one of their favorite games of all time. And then, Valve making a game in the same genre. There's just like, it's also the context of the market. It's their marketing push. It's the fact that they were $40 versus all the free-to-play games in their same field. Like there's so many reasons a game could fail. And, when I said in my review, like, it matches up with some of the other heavyweights in the genre. I mean that from a gameplay perspective, not from it's going to be as successful, those games, Of
course. SG's obviously 1,000 times smaller channel, and yet I got hate comments of the same thing. Like the game failed. How could you give it a good score? It's like, oh my God, these people. Anyway, Alex, thank you. Moving on. Cherry
Mills has been a member for 20 months and writes, watching SG stream while celebrating my 49th level up, partying face emoji.
Party face. Happy birthday,
Cherry. Happy birthday.
Very good.
Yeah. We seasoned like the rest of us here, Cherry. Well, maybe not Travis, but most of us.
Maybe I have a question for Cherry Mills. When you level up, does a wave of power emit from out of you and destroy everything around you?
I got to tell you, when that happens in Diablo, I always think that I've died in hardcore mode. Like the vibration on level up is really mean, Blizzard.
It makes my brain tickle in a nice way. So I have the opposite opinion.
It's like a dopamine hit for me.
Yeah, I like that brain tickle a lot.
Because it makes that like ding as well. Like ding.
Yeah.
By the time you set up your character to not get hit by anything at all, when it vibrates, you're like, wait, okay, quick check to the potions. No, I leveled up. Oh, all right.
Nice. Cherry, happy birthday. Thank you very much, Rob Frawley. I just wanted to I wanted to highlight this as you were talking about Satisfactory.
Hell yeah. Rob Frawley II writes, Travis taught me the wonder of disorganization, but only sometimes. So for context, Rob Frawley II, when I met him, when we first started playing Satisfactory, he was a hardcore, like everything needs to be straight and organized and orderly and on foundations. And when he saw the way I played the game, he was horrified.
You broke this poor man.
And I said, Rob, I understand your disagreement, but I can't play this game for 500 hours. So we're just going to have to push through this way. And at first he was just completely disgusted. I could feel his stress levels rising every second he was in my world. But by the end, he was like, this isn't that bad. And then he later told me that in his own worlds, he's become less of a perfectionist. Still not to my level of insanity, but he's been kind of just more okay with like, he doesn't have to be perfect. And I view that
maybe
progress.
Maybe we should consult you out for like folks with perfectionism as exposure therapy.
Yeah. It's a little bit of shock therapy to Rob Frawley's system.
My mind went somewhere different. My mind was like similar but different, which is that I've met your wife, and I think you just have a way of making incredible people settle.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. 100%. Yeah, I drag people
That's
down to
great.
my level, and it's very good. Very good.
That's good. That's
You know
good.
what's funny is that I'm the exact opposite in real life. So the way I play games, I think I let out all of my Neanderthalic, like chaotic tendencies, and in the real world, I'm like mad if anybody moves an item or things aren't straight. I'm like everything in my house is like super organized and clean, and D is the one who screws that up, and I'm always like, "Get it together, woman. Put things away when you're done using them."
D, damn it.
D, get in here.
Rob, thank you. Fish String has a question for the panel. I figured you guys may be able to help him.
Fifth String asks, any short games that have come out that shocked everyone with how good they are, have a backlog of big games, but would like a short game to play between events. Cool.
Well,
This
last
isn't-
week I talked about UFO 50. It itself is not a short game, but there are a number of short games within UFO 50 that have a lot of good experiences in them. So I would recommend that as a reasonable purchase for that purpose.
Yeah, and I would say this is an obvious one. I think everyone's talked about a million times this year, but Balatro, great
on
game
mobile.
to just to kind of play at will in between various things going on. It's fantastic.
I have had to warn people that its video poker aesthetic may not be right for them, depending on their various proclivities.
Also, that game is not short based on various proclivities like that. I don't know, man. That one's hard to put down after a while.
Yeah,
Hard to put down isn't quite the same as not short. I mean, any
It's
given run on
dangerous.
Balatro.
It's
it is dangerous. It is
Any
dangerous.
game can be short if you don't become addicted to it like meth. But when a game is very good at being addictive like meth, I would say, your short promise may vary.
There you go, Balatro developer. Addictive like meth. Hi, guy Travis.
Put it on the
put it
box.
on the tin. Put
Yeah.
it on the tin.
The tin. God damn it. Now we
By
know
the
it
way,
comes from paint. Yeah,
we got
somebody
it.
Follow it up.
Yeah, I've got it right here. Alex Casts, thank you, Alex, shouted out and left us a comment this week that says, does exactly what it says on the tin. Is a reference to an old advertising slogan from UK-based wood stain and wood dye manufacturer. Is it Ronseal or Roseal? It's got to be Ronseal, right?
Ronseal, yeah.
Yeah, the phrase is also a registered trademark of the Sherwin-Williams company since they own Ronseal. There you go.
There you go.
So,
And the
So
lawyer in
first,
me would say it's still okay for me to say that a game does what it says on the tin because that is not going to violate any trademark issues because I'm not trying to sell any wood staining materials.
But I will
Are
say
you not?
my confusion last week at finally asking the question, why do you keep saying that? What is this tin we speak of? I think was justified. And also it makes no sense in this context, but I will forgive it. Yeah.
I told you that half the things I say, my wife looks up and says, look, Rick, the definition says archaic.
Yeah. my wife does that to me too. And I'm like, beep boop. That's what I say to her.
Beep
Robot does not recognize your human.
I'm just
logic.
curious where I picked it up. If that is the real genesis of does what it says on the tin, where in the world did I get that?
Yeah.
I knew it when you said it, and I have no reason to.
I also knew it. So clearly Sherwin-Williams is doing something right.
Yeah. Max, I hope we helped you out. Hope you're doing well, my friend. Rick Davis is here.
Rick Davis has been a member for 16 months and likes Persona. He writes, morning, guys. Good to see Tom this morning. Question for Ains. I assume you pre-ordered a PS5 Pro. Will you now go PS version more often than Xbox?
Yes, I did order a PS5 Pro. We're going to touch on that later because we have our pizza bet to conclude. But yes, did get a PS5 Pro. And honestly, we were having this discussion on our Discord. Got a new PC, right? We'll have PS5 Pro, Series X, which have everything. The reason being, I just want to play games wherever I feel like playing them at that moment. So if I feel like playing the game on console and there's a Pro version that is notably better than the Xbox version, yeah, I mean, that's why you buy it, right? Otherwise, why would you buy the mid-gen refresh? Yeah, so I mean, that's what I'll be doing. Yeah.
Yeah, I also bought the PS5 Pro purely as a work thing, so I don't know if it'll change the way I play stuff, but I'm gonna have one of those.
Hold on, I saw on Twitter that everyone at IGN gets pros for free.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about
Twitter
that.
did say that.
Forgot about
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Twitter did say
Okay.
that. That's true.
missed
So I'm
that
getting
memo.
one. I'm getting one for free. And what's fun about the way IGN procures our free consoles is we wait until somebody has it in their cart, a normal consumer, and we take it out of their cart. and
Right.
we remove it from like the pool of consoles that you're allowed
Right.
to buy, and then we stick it in ours, and then we laugh as we steeple our fingers. It's very
But
very
but
cool.
to be
Yeah.
fair, we've only been doing that with the 30th anniversary editions this time.
That's right.
so-
That's a good point. That's true. Yeah. So I
Yeah,
mean,
that was after you guys created those 2,000 eBay accounts to get rid of them all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do want to say this. I really liked the PS5 Pro pre-order model. It felt fair to me, and I was able to get one. I waited in line for an hour and like got to the front, and there were no problems, and it made it very clear which ones were sold out and which weren't. And then I click add to cart and buy. Every other pre-order process, whether it was the PS5 base or the Xbox Series X, has been a freaking nightmare to go through. And so I'm really glad that they seem to have come up with a solution that is not super painful. It like told me how much time I was going to be waiting, and then I could refresh the screen. There was no danger. I even reset my browser. I restarted my browser in the middle of it, and it didn't change things. And then when I got to the front of the line, it like put me in the shop, and I didn't have trouble loading and all that stuff. So I was very pleased with the pre-order process, even if I was sort of kicking myself for buying the actual product because
I am happy to be representing the people that play the games on the PlayStation 5 base.
Sweet. Do both.
So I agree with you on that point because I pre-order kind of collector stuff a lot, and nothing worse than when you go in when it's supposed to go live, the site crashes or you can't refresh or all those other things that happen.
Microsoft Store is terrible about that.
Yeah, so I agree with you on that front. The one thing that annoyed me was the fact that you logged in early in the morning. It went live 10 a.m. Eastern in the US anyway. And you logged in early and it just said you're in queue, but didn't give you a time. And so 9 o'clock comes, my time central, and I'm just still sitting there. And the bar's not moving. And I think by like 9:20, 9:25 or whatever, it's like, all right, your wait's more than an hour. And I was like, oh crap, because I was sitting here and I was working, you know what I mean? And I'm like, all right, so then I had to finish it from my phone. But to your point, once you got in, everything worked fine, which...
Yeah, so mine did give me an estimate, but it did have a point where it said like the line was paused, which I assume was just like them saying like we have technical issues or whatever, or we're doing something back end. But I appreciated that it was like, hey, nothing's happening right now, but you can refresh, you can do whatever you want. And then when the line started moving, it gave you a timer. And I don't know, man. I feel like at a time where everybody's I think it was the best. It was the best like pre-order. The cleanest one that I've engaged with. So
cool. When I got in, all the 30th stuff was gone. I could order a 30th controller, normal DualSense, and I didn't, which apparently I should have because everyone wants them now, but I just didn't care. But got a Pro, no problem. Fishstring again.
Fishstring has been a member for 19 months and writes Mafia stories versus Yakuza stories, which is better. I'm gonna go.
They're very different. The Yakuza stories are not as inclined to trying to convince you that they're real.
I'm gonna go Yakuza on this one.
The Yakuzas have more of a soap opera effect. The Mafia stories do try for more realism. I think the Mafia stories are probably my favorites out of even those two because I like the layering of time that they do with, especially Mafia 3, but even Mafia 2 and Mafia 1 do some of the kind of overlapping of narratives and seeing people at different ages and different times. Yakuza is mostly straightforward on that score with some flashbacks. So I'm going to go with Mafia there.
I'm going to go with Yakuza generally, but Mafia 3 as a single game, I would put on top. I think Mafia 3 is...
Mafia 3 is one of my favorite stories in games.
Dude, so good. So good.
I don't have a dog in this fight. I'm not educated enough on all the stories to talk.
If you play like the first hour of Mafia 3, it will sell you on playing the whole game. It's
one of the most propulsive entries in gaming. And I love Mafia 3 to death. Yakuza 0 is probably my favorite Yakuza story. But they're both series with great stories. So if you like crime stories with detailed characters and like lots of layering, betrayals and whatnot, I recommend them both.
Cool. I've had a Mafia 3 Collector's Edition sitting 20 feet from me unopened for 5 years, 6 years, something like that. Yeah, it's good. It's good. It's a cool box.
No, he means it's sick. Just keep it sitting there. Great game.
Yeah.
Shoosh offers €5 and writes, can IGN reviewers use power of money to win an argument against Tom? That's tough.
No. I don't know. No one's tried yet.
Yeah.
Who knows? I'm gonna say no, but when the chips are down, who knows where No.
Stoosh, thank you as always. All right, let's get back to some game chatter here. So we had the PlayStation State of Play this week. Finally, we've been, rumors and waiting and all this stuff, and we finally get a State of Play. So we'll run through the vast majority of the games. I'll give you a little context of what I found on PlayStation blog as I ran through these. Of course, we'll kick off the top with what they ended on, which is, I kind of figured they would end on a big first-party thing. Probably from Sucker Punch, either Ghost or Wolverine, they did. So we now know that Sucker Punch is not making a sequel to Ghost of Tsushima, not directly anyway, but instead we get Ghost of Yokai, which is
that's a sequel. But just a
it's a
different naming
sequel.
convention. Yeah,
It's sequel.
Well,
it's just the Ghost series now.
It's a Ghost series, but yeah, they basically said it's an original story, so it's not continuing the story of Tsushima.
I think it's a T also, Yokei.
Oh, Yokei. Sorry. I don't know why I had Yokai on there.
I think I think Tom literally made an edit to your run of show.
Good.
Which
That's
is
good. I wish you
by the
guys
way-
would do that.
By the way, is the most editor of IGN thing he could have done. He's a guest on the show and he's making like spelling corrections.
I
in
like
the
it.
dialogue. Unbelievable.
No,
That's
because you know what? Now I'm checking in the comments that I actually spell it wrong in the actual
You
in
did.
the actual
And he
description.
corrected it. He
No,
corrected it.
not on the run of show for the description. Anyway, so yeah, Eddie, I appreciate that. I wish you two would interact more with the details here.
I probably should, but
I'm not a Google Docs editor, Ains.
Okay, wait. Ames, in our defense, you send it to me at like 7:30 in the morning, which is when I wake up for this, and I'm like,
we use it the whole show though.
yeah, I know, but I'm like, I have to get dressed, and then I sit down, and then we're doing the show. Like,
You
when am I supposed to review?
You see what I deal with, Tom? You see what I deal with?
Please
He has
don't
to get
cut into his
dressed.
Getting dressed time.
Yeah, he
I
has
want
to get
Travis
dressed.
I had to brush my teeth in the morning, and then I sit down, and you're like, "Hey, why has nobody looked at the run of show?" And I'm like, "Bro, I just got up out of bed. I don't know what you want from me."
The trick is that Travis still needs a YouTube video to learn to tie the tie, so it takes him a while.
Yeah, takes me a long time.
I would love it if that was his deep secret, is that he doesn't know how to tie a tie.
You know what's funny is I've had people ask me like, "Oh yeah, do you know how to tie a tie?" And I'm like, "What do you think my mom like ties my tie every morning before I go off to school?" Like that's
all
crazy.
clip-ons.
Yeah.
Every single one is a clip-on.
By the way, today we got some Constitution.
Ah.
We the people.
Yeah.
All right.
Little
We
Governor
could use
Morris.
some more of
right
that,
in the
Travis.
preamble. Yeah.
All right. Now that you've got us fully off track, Travis.
Sorry.
Ghost of Yokai. So it takes place in 1603, so it's more than 300 years after Tsushima's setting. Mount Yotai is in Ezo, known as Hokkaido today. They said this is all from PlayStation blog, by the way. They say in 1603 the area was outside the rule of Japan and filled with sprawling grasslands, snowy tundras, and unexpected dangers. It's a far cry from the organized samurai clans who lived in Tsushima, and it's the setting for an original story that we can't wait to tell. So
did the PlayStation blog actually use the phrase "far cry" in describing?
This is literally copy and paste.
All right.
Yeah.
Interesting choice.
Yeah.
Plagiarism by Ames.
To get back to your terminology, though, I don't think that we shouldn't call this a sequel just because it's not the same characters. It's
we shouldn't call it a sequel because it's not a sequel.
It's a sequel.
It is a sequel.
It's an original story.
Wait,
Yeah, that takes place.
all sequels are original stories.
It's true. I mean, would you not call BioShock Infinite a sequel to BioShock, even though they're the same?
That's a prequel.
How about BioShock?
I mean, but there happen to be different universes, so I don't know if that. Yeah, I would say it's a sequel. I count it. It's just
It's definitely a sequel. It's
Yeah.
definitely Ghost of Tsushima Yokei. Now I'm confused as to how to even read this thing.
Okay.
Thank you,
Go on.
It is a sequel.
Sure.
If you do call it Ghost of Tsushima Yotai, you get the nice acronym of GOTY. So you can use that in the future, Sucker Punch. But no, I mean this is fantastic. I love Ghost of Tsushima. I think I might like it the best on this panel. I don't know Tom's position on it. I know that Ains doesn't love it. But it's a great game. Jin had a full story, and honestly, I wouldn't have wanted it to continue too terribly far past the ending of Ghost of Tsushima. So I like that they're taking a new approach to continuing this series. Honestly, if they wanted to move outside of Japan, I'd be fine with it. If they just wanted to make a Ghost series in a completely different context. One of the coolest things about this particular trailer was that we didn't know it was 1603 at the time, but you could tell from the Western music that they were trying to do some different stuff with how this game felt, right? And Seven Samurai, of course, leads to, the name escapes me, the Magnificent Seven, and have this connection between samurai and Western stories already. So putting it in a time where you've got kind of colonial forces and Westernization of Japan is an interesting new beat for the series. So I'm excited about this one. I don't think we need to get too deep into the various internet discussions about the controversy, as it were, with having a female lead to this, because I think Jin's story was done.
Definitely a
but
controversy.
I'm nothing
Women
but excited for
shouldn't
this game.
Shouldn't be. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, it made me want to go back to Tsushima. I like the game a lot. I just didn't think, some people hold it really, really high up, and I didn't think it was that great. I think it had I think it fell, in my opinion, into some of the pit traps of the PS4 era games at that time, similar to Days Gone, where it felt templatey to me. It was a unique setting. It was a unique kind of experience in the sense of the story and the character and stuff. But what I was doing, going and clearing camps and kind of the menu system and the upgrade pathing and all that stuff just felt very samey. And it just kind of lost it for me there. I also do not get people, and this is just me, who say, I've heard people say it's like the greatest open world game ever developed. I'm like, what are you talking about? Calm down. It's just not, I don't hold it up to that level for me, but a very good game nonetheless.
Yeah, I'm the same kind of way. I think it's like good, maybe great in some ways, but it is kind of a Ubisoft game with a better UI. That's kind of how I view it.
Well, it's a lighter Ubisoft game. It's less of the icons on the screen. And I think some of the brilliant stuff that Tsushima did with directing you
the
with
wind and
the
all
birds
that,
and the wind and things instead of a UI were borrowed from games later on. It was a really effective
good idea
to the way that open worlds were treated. And
but
it's not Red Dead. It's not a Rockstar open world. But I do think it is a compelling story with an open world that doesn't overwhelm you. And it's gorgeous to boot. It has great art direction. It has great combat.
No, not correct.
It does.
But the combat's okay. But yeah, I would say, as you guys know, I'm sick of the samurai thing. We just keep getting it in games, and I want it to go away because I'm sick of it. It's kind of like the zombie thing as well, which I guess is not a big of a deal. But there was a while there where I was like, dude, if I see another zombie, I'm going to kill myself. So I'm kind of sick of the setting, but it's more
you
of
heard
it.
it here, Tom. The samurai zombie game that's going to come out next year. Travis has to review it.
Yeah, that's right.
That actually doesn't sound bad. I mean that's fresh.
Samurai zombies. Maybe that's the fresh new take.
All right.
I will say this. That would be the most like SEO friendly game of all time. A samurai zombie game, especially if it was like a Souls-like. Oh my god, dude! Can you imagine?
So Onimusha Remastered, Capcom. Here we go.
Yeah.
Man, I love Onimusha back in the day.
Look, I'll play this. I'll say it was like the biggest announcement at the show, and I was sort of like just okay on it, which that's not really probably what you want my reaction to your state of play being. But hey, at least it was something new. Yes, it's a sequel. Yes, it's a sequel to a game that I thought was just all right. But like, it's cool. It's more games. I'll play it on my PS5 Pro. Sick.
I hope you enjoy it on your Pro.
They do comment. Actually, I've got the blog post here. They do comment that it's the first game, obviously, that Sucker Punch has built from the ground up for PlayStation 5. So, they're just looking at building upon everything they did in the first one. So, obviously, it was a stunning game to begin with. It was beautiful. The art direction and kind of what they showed from this trailer was stunning. So, excited to get into it. No specific date other than 2025, of course, and we'll see if that lands officially next year. But,
always advance every date, folks. Assume 26. If it comes in earlier, be happy.
Yeah. So, Tom, what'd you think, man? Were you a Ghost of Tsushima fan?
Yeah, I sort of echo. I'm probably closer to you and Travis than I am Hogue in that I thought it was a beautiful, stylistically, the visuals of it, the presentation of that game were phenomenal. And then I thought that the actual open world gameplay stuff was very, very, very good and fun, right? I'm not absolutely not speaking ill of that game. I just wasn't like, my socks weren't wildly knocked off by it. I think what I will say, I think anybody who does love that game, I totally get it too, right? I think that that is a game that if it speaks to you, I fully understand why. What I will also say though is that, Ains, to your point about it feeling templatey, I don't disagree. I do think that that's my favorite type of game to get a sequel because that's the type of game where it had a really amazing, something really amazing about it, but it just sort of felt like the safe version of that, maybe gameplay wise, is the perfect place for that developer to take it to a new location with a new character and just try to make it better, right? Because I never played Star Wars Jedi. I never played the second one, but I hear a very similar thing sort of echoed with that, right? Where the first one was very good, and then the second one blew it off, right? And blew its socks off. And then the Assassin's Creed is the classic example of this. Assassin's Creed 1 is cool, and then Assassin's Creed 2 is actually the game people remember. And so I think open world games, a lot of the time, new open world games need that second sort of game in the series to really not find their footing, but embrace the parts of it that really worked and explore those parts more. So even if I'm not wildly jumping out of my seat for this, I'm really glad it's happening, and I'm really excited to see what they do with it.
Yeah, I think that's perfectly fair.
Good take.
Yep. So, that's coming 2025, like we said. We also got, they quickly commented on Astrobot. Of course, Astrobot, very, very well received. That there's an update coming later this year that will add additional speedrun levels and an additional 10 bots to save coming this fall.
Which I thought we knew. I thought they had mentioned that already. So maybe this is just the big public splash for it.
I think we knew DLC was coming. We didn't know specifically what it was going to be, and basically everyone assumed it was going to be speedrun stuff. I think is like roughly how that was. Maybe we knew that it was actually going to be speedrun, but this is at least the first look at it.
Yeah, it's just one of those announcements where you're like, yeah, I think I knew that.
Right.
So fair enough.
Cool. We talked about this last week and made jokes about it, of course, but Horizon Zero Dawn Remastered leaked ahead of time. We know it is real. It is coming on Halloween, October 31st. Basically, how they're selling this is that it has over 10 hours of new motion capture and other enhancements, and you can upgrade it whether you have the PS Plus downloaded edition or you own Horizon Zero Dawn. You can upgrade for $10.
Did they confirm that you could do it with the free Plus version?
Yeah, there's some wording around it. So it was like, if you own this because of something that was downloaded as part of your subscription, you can upgrade as well. But I think you probably have the same issue, whereas if you stop your subscription, you lose access to that game, right?
I haven't purchased Horizon Zero Dawn, so it's not really my issue. I just was curious if they were honoring it for the subscription version.
If you lose access to the game, but you own the $10 upgrade for the game you don't own, that sounds like a very fun position to be in.
I'm not 100% confirming that, but I believe that's what was said.
If you're familiar with how the Game Pass Deluxe $30 upgrades work and things like that, then yeah, if you don't have the base game, that money is just gone if you turn off the Game Pass.
Sick.
Yep.
I want to set the record for most amount of like expansions and upgrades for games I don't own. That I can't play. I want that to be like that's
just a whole hard drive full of them.
Yeah, a whole hard drive full of just like, I own like the upgrade for this game. What about the base game? Don't have that, but it's nice it's like that Mafia 3 box sitting in Ains's room.
It's great. It's really good. Yeah, it's a cool box. Horizon Lego Adventures coming November 14th. We knew about this one, obviously, PlayStation and Switch. Hogue, is this a Hogue game? Hogue House game?
No, sorry, I didn't mean to say that laughingly. No, we are not Looking
Yeah,
forward
some
to this.
developer somewhere is single tier down the street. Just at that. No.
I thought this was an easy Hogue House game, and
No, we
he
talked
quickly
about this
corrected
game.
me.
So, Hogue and I both had the same reaction to this, which is Lego games are cool. Why in the heck would you ever choose the
That's
Horizon
true.
universe
That's
for
true.
this?
That's
Like,
true.
it's just a weird-
Well, then I'm the weirdo because I think it looks funny. But
I like
okay.
Horizon. I like Lego, and those two together, I'm like, it doesn't really seem like my thing.
We might give it a shot at some point, but it's certainly not a must-have day one.
Gotcha. All right, let me bring Hogue back. Let me bring him back. Alan
You're
Wake
gonna be
2,
disappointed
The
by my
Lake
reaction
House.
to this.
Oh, maybe not. Okay. Hold on. It's the last expansion for Alan Wake 2. It's coming in October, which is, by the way, as we're recording, 2 days away, but they didn't give a date. It just said October.
Which we already knew, by the way. They'd already
Yeah.
said Lake House was October.
Yeah, and the description of this is within the Federal Bureau of Control's research station, the Lake House, a catastrophic event has occurred where reckless experiments have caused reality to collide with the dark. Capitalize dark.
But you gotta
Hogue, I
capitalize
figured this
dark.
would be you.
Alan Wake 2, my game of the year last year. I adore Alan Wake. I adore the vibes of Alan Wake. I much less adore the vibes of Control. And one of the things that I was interested in was how are they going to Alan Wakeify Control for this particular expansion? Because we knew the Lake House. We already knew that the Federal Bureau of Control had a body following Cauldron Lake called the Lake House. So we knew it was likely to be a Control-oriented DLC. And I was interested in how that was going to look as seen through the eyes of Alan Wake. And they've promised us that this is an Alan Wake 2 game, not a Control game. And we weren't really shown exactly what that means in this particular teaser. But it does have a lot more of the Control feel and the bureaucracy vibe than I had hoped for this expansion. So yes, of course, I've already bought this. I think this was with the deluxe edition of Alan Wake 2. So I'm going to play this when it comes out. I have no doubt that it will not be as exciting to me as the Night Springs DLC was. But I am, of course, looking forward to more Alan Wake 2, which was the best game of last year. So I'm of two minds on this thing.
Yes, I love Alan Wake and I love Control. And Hogue is weird for not liking Control. And so I'm very excited for this expansion. I will play it. Lake House, let's go. I actually still haven't played the last expansion, though, so I probably need to do that.
You don't need to. It's essentially kind of ancillary to Alan Wake 2. But it is something you should play.
Don't tell me what to do. Don't you dare.
Don't you dare, sir.
I mean, if we're going to go full lawyer, I didn't tell you what to do. I just said you don't need to play it.
Tom, Alan Wake 2, interested at all? Is this your thing or no?
No, last year instead of playing Alan Wake 2, I had a child. So
the more challenging game. Yes.
Yeah, so Alan Wake 2 is on my
hard sometimes.
I was a fan of Alan Wake 1. I was a big fan of Control. So Alan Wake 2 is on my backlog of games I really do want to hit at some point, but I just haven't gotten to yet.
Fair enough. And I almost disgracingly have not finished Alan Wake 2. I'm still playing through it. So, yeah.
Sad.
I know. It is sad.
You'll never be the champion of light. That's the problem.
That actually is sad. That's one of those games I really need to go through.
Hogue is the Herald of Darkness when he goes, no.
All right. We got Archage Chronicles, which an online action RPG. It says Archage Chronicles promises to deliver more immersive experience with strong emphasis on action combat. Game will feature epic large-scale raids, cooperative gameplay, diverse array of activities for multiplayer and players to enjoy on their PS5. So I thought the video of this one looked good, but I obviously am out of the loop in that this was already part of a series. Anyone have any context as to Archage Chronicles?
This made such an impact on me that I don't remember it at all. I might have gone to the bathroom. I don't know.
I don't think it's your type of game, Hogue, but yeah, you can look it up.
Yeah, it does sort of speak to the state of play that we just got past Alan Wake 2 on this list, and I'm like, what's the rest of this now?
Yeah, there's a few interesting things, but it was we'll talk about that.
So
Go ahead.
I know about the series and have not played any of the games in it, but
Mhm.
watching the trailer, I was like, "Oh, this is I'm kind of in the mood for one of these." It kind of reminded me of like an online version of like Dragon's Dogma. Is kind of what it looked like.
Yeah, a little bit.
So yeah, I kind of want to give this one a try. Like if I find an excuse, if I end up reviewing it or something, like I would totally dive into this one. It looks cool.
So is it
It's,
an MMO?
It's online. I think it's like maybe co-op thing.
Yeah,
I'm
let
not
me
really
let me
sure. I
take a
don't think
look.
I'm not
Go
sure if
ahead.
it's an MMO.
Yeah, they basically so the nice thing here is that on the PlayStation blog they have a full rundown of state of play, and then they have links to each game independently with a lot of people from the developers of each game. So that's pretty
Steam
cool.
has it as an MMO. It says online PvP, online co-op MMO. So I didn't
Okay.
get MMO, but I definitely got like play with your friends, and that's enough for me. Like, I'll give this
Well,
one a try if I have an
The
excuse.
term MMO has also been warped a lot in
True.
recent years, where games that we would just sort of consider online co-op games are now called massively multiplayer on. So it could be some permutation of this that is not like World of Warcraft MMO, but is an online PvP PvE game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll see. We'll see how that one turns out. It just
The
says next
combat
year.
definitely doesn't look MMO, and I think
Right.
everybody who's played an MMO knows what I mean by that. It looks much like a Dragon's Dogma or like a multiplayer Dragon Age. Kind of has like For Honor or Souls like combat or whatever. It's third person action, but yeah, it looked good. I mean, this is one where like it's new, looks a little different. I don't know if it's going to be good, so like those are the games I like to play, and I get a lot more excited certainly by that than like a Horizon Zero Dawn remaster that for a game I've already played, or I want to be a little more optimistic on this one because I'm interested in seeing how it shakes out.
Okay. Yeah, Cookie Mon Steve says the original Archage was an MMO. So
Okay.
about
maybe
10
it
years
is.
ago.
Yeah.
So and then we got releasing also on Halloween, October 31st, of course, is Dragon Age the Veilguard, which is kind of hilarious that Horizon, even its remaster, releases against another big game. But we get the Blighted Dragon trailer. And I know we've been all over the place on Dragon Age. We've talked about it a lot here. I've been higher on Dragon Age the more gameplay and content I've seen. And then this one brought me back down again.
I mean,
Really?
at some level, it starts to look desperate, right? They're just showing scenes that you would expect to see in a Dragon Age. I really soured watching this thing play out, and I really still don't trust the action combat of this game, period. And I was not convinced by this video, which would seem to only exist for the purpose of convincing me of the action combat in this game. So this was a big miss for me. But as you know, I've been skittish about Dragon Age Veilguard throughout its entire kind of publicity run here. So I am not impressed. I will undoubtedly still get it because I want BioWare to succeed, and I've loved Dragon Age or certain entries in Dragon Age before. But I have a lot of doubts about this game, and certainly it is. If we're categorizing my feelings towards RPGs in the next 2 months, Metaphor, Dragon Quest III, probably others are way above Veilguard for me right now.
Yeah. I'm kind of in the same boat. I'm a little nervous about this one. I'm not sure if it's gonna shake out, but I like Dragon Age, and I wasn't as harsh on it after the initial reveal. But yeah, I don't think this was the strongest trailer. Maybe it's just a bad trailer, but EA and BioWare have not had the greatest track record in recent years. So I'm just
importantly, it's not a trailer; it's like a clip of a fight. I mean,
yeah.
So that looked the closest to what it would be like to play the game.
Sure.
It's so hard not to be at least a little bit skeptical about this game to some degree after, Anthem obviously is a very different type of game, but that was the last thing. That's our benchmark, right? That's the last thing we have to judge them off of to a certain extent. And then this got announced with a different name and then delayed forever and then re-announced. And so there's, through no fault of the game itself or anything they've shown of this actual version of it, even, there's reason to be a little bit wary at the very least, right?
Yeah, agreed. And I don't know about you guys. I mean, one of my favorite aspects of Inquisition was, they had those dragons kind of around the environment you could discover and then battle and take down. And this one looked kind of almost scripted. And Yeah, and when you start to remove that freedom from my gameplay, just for me personally, I start to pull back a little. So
They're
yeah, I don't
definitely
know.
paring back on the open world, right? Like it is clear that Inquisition
Yeah.
is not the baseline for Veilguard.
Yeah.
You've seen the various previews talk about Mass Effect 2 being more of what they're going for, which is the kind of corridor-based man shoot in Mass Effect, but presumably corridor-based medieval fighting run in Dragon Age Veilguard. And a lot of people love Mass Effect 2, so I can't blame them for saying that's what we're going to make now. But that never worked for me as part of an epic RPG, and so I'm not going to be too terribly excited for Veilguard.
Mass Effect 2 is goated. My problem with this is that it reminded me more of Dragon Age 2, actually, which I think is way more applicable here because it had that same like very small hubs, and I would say was a lot more constricting and limited than Mass Effect 2, certainly. Especially since in that game you were retreading through the exact same areas over and over again, which was insane. But yeah, I'm a little, we'll see.
We'll see. Yeah,
there's definitely room to doubt here. I have no idea what the reviews are going to look like.
I want it to be great. I really do. I'm sitting here. I want it to be awesome, but I just don't get that feel from it right now.
I tried to review it. Tom Marks wouldn't let me. I just want to state that.
I could see this one being one of those big releases where reviews are all over the place. It's going to be really, I think expectations, especially after this long for a game like Dragon Age, are going to be way heavily. We'll see.
Well, I do think this publicity run has been successful in certain respects. I think a lot of people are aware of the game's existence and a lot of people are excited about it coming out. Yeah. And so I can't take away from the marketers on that. It just hasn't really vibed with me in what I've seen or been shown.
Yeah. Yeah, the previews, I mean, basically I saw a lot of positivity. So I think, like I said, I was pretty high on this actually. And then this trailer kind of pulled me back down. So we'll see. We'll see.
I mean, I'll take previews impressions over like a trailer or gameplay section, just because it's like actual people playing and saying, especially when it's in an early state, like it makes me feel a little bit better. But
I think I told you last week the previews were too good. That
they scare you a little bit.
Uniformly positive in a way that just felt artificial to me, and I also didn't like that.
I mean, yeah, I don't think you should worry about them being uniform. That's usually a good thing, just as somebody who writes previews. Like if they're universally positive,
I am not going to take away from any of the people that got hands on the games or got to play it. I just think that the sea of positivity for things that didn't really match what deserved that positivity, as I was reading their words to me, made me suspect that this was not going to be a game that worked out for me. Not that anybody's
I will say this: in a game like Dragon Age, previews have a certain limited use because you don't get to see the stuff that is important to these type of games because it takes out. It's like a preview of like a Persona game, right? Like if you just played like the first 2 weeks of Persona, you'd be like, "This is a terrible game where I have to take tests," and so it takes a while to get good. And I think Dragon Age, the things people care about are like, are the characters going to be good? Is the story going to be good? How does it progress? How does it get better over the course of 80 hours? And I think it's hard to get that in a snapshot. And sometimes, most of the time, if you're previewing a game, they're giving you what they think is like the best slice. And so sometimes you see like something that's really good, and then you play the full game and you're like, well, actually, that slice is stretched over 40 hours is awful. So sometimes that does happen, but I would not take.
That's why I like so much about prologue demos, right? That's why I liked Metaphor so much. It's why I really disliked the Visions of Mana demo. I hate the kind of slice because you want to show me the battle system. Doesn't work for a JRPG because they're too weird and they're making all sorts of decisions on their own.
It's a hella slow intro though, so I get why they did it.
Yeah, no, I can understand it, but I think prologue demo is basically the way that all of the JRPGs should be sold.
Sure.
It clearly worked for Final Fantasy 16. They obviously had a very kind of clear 2-hour style prologue that they were able to go into.
Prologue. A lot of JRPGs have really weak prologues.
Final Fantasy 16 launches you into its story. So yes, most JRPGs are more like, you are a boy and a butterfly has come by, which signals the end of time. Would you like to go on a quest? I understand that, but I do think you can do better than what I have seen from Dragon Age Veilguard so far.
Yeah, we'll see. We're not far off now. We've been talking about it for a long time. We're a month away, so we'll find out. We got Fantasian Neo Dimension, which is Sakaguchi's new game coming out December.
What'd you say you're gonna do to me?
December. We'll talk offline. December 5th for this game, and he did make an appearance during the show, which was cool to see. Always cool to see Sakaguchi. So I don't know anything about this. I don't know anything about this series.
I'm so
or
immature
game,
that when I hear Ain say, always good to see Sakaguchi.
It's a Japanese name, folks.
Yeah.
Don't let Travis get you. And not only that, it's a really famous one. You know,
he's a legend.
Fantasia's an interesting game from my perspective because I played it originally on Apple Arcade. I believe this is a remaster or remake of similar gameplay elements. I don't think it's the identical game. And I know from the pedigree as someone whose favorite series is Final Fantasy that I should be more excited about Sakaguchi and Uematsu making a game together again. But this one still just doesn't get me excited yet. Because I every time they show something about the way the battles work, it reminds me of the app game, which is fine. That was fine for a game on your phone. But I don't know whether that's going to translate very well. And I don't know that the diorama model that worked decently well on the smaller screen is going to project what it needs to for a JRPG. So I want to love this game. I'm excited about Sakaguchi and Uematsu getting to make a game again together. And I'm excited about the fact that I believe Square is publishing this. So I believe there's been some kind of reconciliation there, at least a little bit. And so that's all exciting. But I think this particular project as a game is not as exciting to me as kind of everything that goes around it.
Gotcha. Okay, fair enough. Yeah, there's an interview actually with Sakaguchi on PlayStation blog about the partnership between Miss Walker and Square Enix. So you can look that up if you want to. Fear the Spotlight is the first game out of the Blumhouse game announcements that happened at Summer Game Fest. So this one's coming out October 22nd. This one is the one, if you don't know, it kind of looks like a PS1 game almost. It's got that old pixelated look. And I spoke about this game, you may recall, after Summer Game Fest because I got to play this there and really enjoyed it. It's more of a simplistic game as you would think of the PS1 style era, but I was pretty engrossed in it. And it leads up. It was kind of like a half an hour to 45-minute intro that leads into the story. And so I'm hoping this one does well and gets some looks. Like I said, October 22nd for that one. It should be coming to all platforms, I believe, as well.
Well, I've always loved Blumhouse's model of making content. They go for low budget and try to make a lot of money on those low budget horror movies that they make. So if they bring that to the interactive space, I think that could work. Certainly we saw earlier this year, I think it was, with what was the name of the game that was a PlayStation aesthetic where you were in like a dilapidated theme park? It's like Critter County or something like that.
Crow Country.
Crow Country, yes. Very much like Critter County.
Critter County.
Critter County, Crow Country, very similar.
Yeah, their rival.
It's the rival theme park across town.
Like, I think that aesthetic does give a kind of haunted feel to it in some respects, and I think that can work really well with a lower budget game. So I hope it's great. I don't think we know enough about it other than it has a PlayStation aesthetic at this point in time. We know Ains has played a little bit of it. That's not enough for me yet, folks. Is it enough for you?
Wow. Whoa.
I know. He just disregards it.
I'm really excited for this. I hope we have another Annapurna on our hands here with this this movie production company moving into games and doing weird stuff. So I'm excited for this one.
Yeah, I hope the full game's good. So, a game that kind of at least anecdotally for me made some waves was Hell Is Us.
Yes. This thing looks awesome.
Yeah, so this is I've got the notes here from the blog. So third-person action adventure game set in complex world that will challenge your intellect while we hope, this is from the producer, we hope delivering a compelling and mature story. The game
we hope disclaimer in the description of a video game.
Well, the reason why apparently is it says the game explores deep things, civil war, human emotions, and family, small topics. But basically what made this one stand out is they've kind of removed all the stuff from UI to markers to guidance, etc. So it says in Hell of Us, you won't have a magical map or compass revealing your points of interest surrounding you, no markers identifying your next quest objective, no artificial or mechanical guides to orient you. Instead, we invite you to dive directly into the game's universe and rely on your own observation, reasoning, and intuition to progress. The environments are not there simply to decorate, they're there to communicate. Correspondingly, paying attention to what the NPCs tell you is crucial, as what they tell you is actual organic information about what to do and how to do it. So,
bring in Yellow Paint Guy. I love Yellow Paint Guy.
I'm going to use my big brain to figure things out.
This game looks awesome, and when it was being shown in the state of play, I honestly thought it was a spiritual successor to Death Stranding. It has that vibe. It is super exciting to me. This is by far the most excitement that I had for a game that I hadn't heard of before. Is Hell Is Us.
Yeah.
It looks very cool. I will say I always get so suspicious when a developer is talking about basic gameplay design things like they are revolutionizing the games industry. They are not the first game that has ever done a low UI game where you have to actually listen to the NPCs to decide where you figure out where you're going in the game. So like, if that's their selling point, I'm like, what are you hiding here is like my gut reaction to that. But I will also fully agree. It looks really, really, really cool. And the aesthetic of it is very, very cool.
Agree. Yep. Feel the same way. There's more information on the blog. And by the way, it says YouTube premiere Monday, September 30th. So as we're talking right now, it'll premiere tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. Pacific. So we'll see more tomorrow. We can hopefully talk more about that next week. But it definitely did grab me. And I'm someone who really enjoys games where you just have to kind of figure it out. So
that's my favorite setting that Ubisoft offers for the last 5 years or so, which is like we're not going to put a direct point on your map.
Oh, the setting in the game, you mean?
Yeah. No, they have a setting in all of their games, I think, because it is Ubi game for the most part. That allows you to switch between directed and discovery mode, give or take.
Yeah.
And discovery is the people are going to say things, and you're going to have a wide area to look for various objectives in your missions. And I definitely prefer that. I do agree with Tom that these kinds of quotes are easy to say to some extent. It does require some better design or some at least more detailed design than we see if you're using the UI and the map and the compass. And so you are putting that on yourselves, and I hope you meet that burden. But the trailer was awesome. I was totally into the vibe. I was totally into the various things they were showing. And I am looking forward to it, even though it appears probably is going to be a long way off, would be my guess.
I agree. The game looks promising. I hate the title. And
it's definitely going to be a Hell Is Other People reference in there, right?
Yeah, of course. It strikes me as like one of those extremely marketed, like The Last of Us, or it's got kind of the same. Anyway, and I will
say
the
word us, folks. You heard it.
Yeah, they took the us. I will say this about Ubisoft's turn off the markers on the map thing. Avatar Frontiers of Pandora, where they're like, oh yeah, go find this base. It's near a group of blorp smears. And you're like, cool. Yeah, we all know what blorp smears are. We're all familiar with that.
That is not real Pandora talk.
I know, but this is the type of stuff they say. They're like, yeah, it's in a field of blorp smears. And I'm like, okay. And then I start walking around and I'm like, these are all plants. They all look identical to me. I have no idea.
Your avatar vision.
It's crazy. It's like it's so unhinged, the stuff they make you do. We had that on D and I, and D had the UI. She was like running off to stuff, and I was trying to do it that way, and I was like, dude, I can't do this. I don't know where anything is. So
I do think it probably works the worst in Frontiers of Pandora, which is a game I really like. But that's fair, Travis. I think the biggest issue with Frontiers of Pandora is that they have a lot of verticality and a lot of specific entry points in order to get to that verticality. And so having discovery mode doesn't work super well with that kind of playground approach to designing the environment.
I hear it gets better once you get your dragon, and we never got our dragon. We played the game for like 30 hours.
Hold on.
We never got our
Frontiers
dragon.
Never got.
Yeah, dude, we played it for so long, and they kept being like, "Go get the dragon." And I was like, I don't know why. I don't know why we never got our dragons. We probably should have.
You probably had to collect more blurp smears.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, it's unfortunate.
Dragon.
The French Prince of Pandora is better when you get your Banshee.
They're called Banshee. See, I wouldn't have known that. I would have been walking around looking for a ghost to fight if they said, go get your Banshee. The Avatar universe makes no sense. All right. From moment one of we need to go get unobtainium, I have despised the Avatar universe. And I don't understand why anybody thinks that
Folks, this is the guy that defends the Last Jedi every time he gets.
Last Jedi's amazing. You can go jump off a hill. And so yeah,
I'm not going to take this Avatar besmirchment in favor of the Last Jedi. This is ridiculous.
I'm sorry. Avatar is
How
a
can you employ
silly,
this person, Tom?
silly, goofy universe. Goofy.
It is a goofy universe. They turn into blue alien people, man.
I mean, there's ways to turn into blue alien people with a modicum of more seriousness. All right, that's what I'm saying.
Avatar is just fine, folks. Don't listen to Travis.
It is just fine, and I would not grant it anything better than that. Unobtainium, really? How long did we think about that before we put a green light on it?
Have you looked at the periodic table? Have you seen the names of the heavy elements?
Do you know about the word unobtainable? Have you heard of this? Do you know what that means? Because they're obtaining it.
Oh boy.
All right. Dragons. Monster Hunter Wilds. February 28th. We got the date. I'm moving on past your besmirchment. Monster Hunter Wilds, we got the date, February 28th, right in the heart of like several game releases, but I think Monster Hunter Wilds will be just fine because that franchise is massive.
Okay.
Yeah. Tom touched on this earlier, of course, but huge release on the last day of February. Yeah. Not much else to say. It's going to be a huge release, going to be a big game. I'm sure Monster Hunter fans are going to really have a good time. I'm not a big Monster Hunter fan, but what I saw back in June was impressive. And I have promised the crew at SG that I will try to get into this game with them. So I am looking forward to it.
No, it's going to rock.
Honestly, I think this is one of those ones, like, if you don't like the mainline Monster Hunter games, I totally would not that's so understandable because those games are super grindy and I think like kind of niche, especially if you haven't played a lot of the older ones. They can be extremely convoluted, but World was very different. Like, that game is super easy to get into, and I think Wilds is similarly, hopefully even more, gonna hit that. So I'd say even if you're scared of Monster Hunter, I think you should probably give Wilds a try when it hits.
Well, I will say this for the marketing on this: I would not have spotlighted a story trailer at the State of Play. I don't think even the people that enjoy the Monster Hunter universe and the Monster Hunter gameplay are probably coming to it for the storyline of Monster Hunter, and maybe
into the lore of Monster Hunter, dude.
No, is anybody in the lore of Monster Hunter?
Yeah, dude, the lore is crazy.
I'm sure they are.
Yeah,
I mean, this is a big audience. I'm sure the game has a big audience. I'm sure there's people that dive deep.
How deep in the lore are you? Let's hear it.
I'm not super deep. The Monster Hunter has, like, I would say that from my understanding it, for what I've seen, Monster Hunter has a lot of lore about its monsters and ecosystem, but there seems to be a lot less lore game to game organization, because a lot of the time you're like in a different continent where everything's new and they're just sort of like roughly referencing the hunting guild back home. I'm sure there's a lot of lore about that stuff, but at least it doesn't feel like the world is super fleshed out with lore as much as it's the monsters specifically and the hunting of them specifically. That all has a lot of detail to it. That's my read on it, again, as somebody who only started playing the game 7 years ago or something like that.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and I like the ecosystem stuff and explaining why this dinosaur looks this way, but I would not have gone out with a big trailer about fighting cats and the various Japanese food items. But hey, I'm not in charge. Wild is going to sell just fine.
Oh, yeah. It's going to do extremely well. Yeah. We did get the confirmation. I think this might have come out ahead of time, but Soul Reaver 1 and 2 remastered coming December 10th. So if you're a Soul Reaver fan, enjoy.
Soul Reaver is great. The Aspire remasters are hard to tell whether they're essentially like real remasters and have done a lot, or whether they're essentially ports into the future. So I'm going to withhold judgment on this, but it's nice to have Soul Reaver available on a modern system, certainly.
Yeah.
Soul Reaver is a great game. I say great game because Soul Reaver 1 doesn't have an ending. If you haven't played this game, Soul Reaver 2 is just the ending of Soul Reaver 1. And Crystal Dynamics kind of famously ran out of money and just put a text screen at the end of Soul Reaver 1, which was a big deal for me back when it happened. And I was mad at Amy Hennig for years.
I don't remember that.
Oh, yeah. Oh, it just ends. It just stops.
We should do a section one of these, like when we have a slower week, to talk about like games with the most offensive cliffhanger endings that never got a sequel, like, you know, Condemned to Star Wars Commando, like those games where it's just like straight up cliffhanger, no sequel, just screw you, you're never gonna get to see that. Was it Condemned 2, or did we get a 3 and the 3 had a cliffhanger?
We did not get a 3.
Okay, Condemned 3.
It's 2 has the cliffhanger that I still wake up at night screaming because I'll never know what happens.
How about Halo 5? They just
There you go. Yeah, Halo 5.
Now, wait a minute. They answered that cliffhanger. They were just like, the war
Well,
stuff.
that's the thing.
Take care of that.
It's like Last Jedi: Rise of Skywalker. We'll never get to see what the sequel to Halo 5 is because they decided to not make it and instead make a different thing. And
Hogue, hold back, Hogue. Hold back. We're moving on.
No, I agree with him. I agree that a second Last Jedi would have been superior to the complete abandonment of everything.
So honestly, this is one area where Hogue and I agree. Like,
good.
Despite how you feel about Last Jedi, like Rise of Skywalker is just, it's
the joke I make is that they kicked half the fan base out of the boat with Last Jedi and kicked the other half out with Rise of Skywalker. That's not a great plan.
Yeah, if they would have just stuck the course, I think people would have eventually come around to recognizing Last Jedi for the brilliance that it is, but we never get to know. And honestly, I feel the same way about Halo 5 Guardians as well, by the way. I still think that people would think that game's story was better than it was if they would have finished it, but we never got because these creatives are gutless and they let.
I do think Infinite just saying, "Oh yeah, that war is done," is no fun.
Yeah, it sucks.
In terms of not making the sequel, my least favorite is still Resident Evil 4. I know people love that game, but the Umbrella Corporation went down to the stock market is just not what is implied by Leon S. Kennedy saying we've got to take out Umbrella.
I cannot wait for them to make the game where you bring down Umbrella as a stock market trader. That's what that's me. That's my thing. I want to play that game.
Evil 3.5 stockbroker.
There you go.
Hell yeah, dude. Hell yeah.
All right. A couple more to get through from the state of play. So we got Lunar Remastered. So this is coming in spring 2025, and this brings back Lunar Silver. This brings... Wow. Look at his face.
Dude, he just went full anime on us.
I know. This brings back Lunar Silver Star Story Complete and Lunar 2 Eternal Blue Complete and brings it up to the PS5.
Lunar is fantastic. This was by far my favorite announcement of the show. You heard me say I liked Hell Is Us. That's the new IP that I liked. Lunar coming back is such good news. And the Lunar games were translated by a company called Working Designs that had the publishing rights for them for a long time. I don't know how these got freed up. I don't know what work the lawyers were doing behind the scenes, but it does imply that maybe more of the Working Design stuff could become more available to remasters and remakes. And Lunar is, to me, the definitive kind of classic hero JRPG experience. It is that cartoon boy sitting on a rock thinking about the girl he likes and a butterfly passes by. It is that game. Lunar Silver Star Story is fantastic.
That hits me where I live, Hogue.
I know I hit you where you live. That's where you live, on that rock, looking at butterflies, thinking about the girl you like.
Yeah.
But these are two fantastic games, and get excited, people, if you haven't played these. These are going to be your favorite JRPGs, at least until the Suikoden remasters come out, which is a heck of a year in 2025 for two great sets of remasters. So Lunar is super exciting. Yep, I am going to fan on this one because you guys should be more excited than I know you are in the chat. Stop being cynical and ironic. Get earnest and excited.
Oh my God. All right. All right.
Don't get excited about those. All right.
Wow.
Next.
I've played these games and I'm so far the other direction of your excitement, but you're carrying it for us. So enjoy.
Fine.
Enjoy.
whatever. Yeah.
It is cool to see him on a new platform. I mean, I appreciate that. So, wow, Hogue. All right. I've never seen anime Hogue before. That was something.
Man, I'm 2 seconds from singing the darn song in Lunar. So
No, I'm moving on. I'm
Yeah.
moving on.
Here, wait,
Moving on.
guys. Let's entertain this.
No.
Hogue.
For those of you that don't know, Lunar has musical interludes.
Okay.
Man,
Oof.
I am pumped.
I can tell. I don't even know how to transition from this. We've got Towers of Aghasba. Does that do it for you?
Yes, it does, actually. I think I wrote this when I was tweeting about this show as Towers of Blank because I couldn't remember what the word was. But this is some kind of like cozy city builder exploration thing.
Yes, on November 5th.
Those can be cool. The problem with them is that they can be awful. They can waste your time. They can be poorly designed. There's a high variance level here in these types of games. So I think what they showed was cool. I will definitely give it a shot. And I hope it's great. But I agree
that many of these cozy type games can be kind of just like middling, but it gives me a little bit more confidence to see it at the PlayStation show because it means to me that somebody at PlayStation has seen that game and is confident enough that it's going to be a big deal to put it on their show. So I'll play this one with D. This will be a good one.
Cool.
I agree with you, Travis. I do. Of course, the State of Play did have a 13-minute section on Concord most recently before this show.
Good game.
I like Concord. You know this about me. But in terms of picking winners, I'm not sure we can rely on Sony.
Well, in terms of quality, not in their success of the game. But yeah, I mean, I'm a little more confident than if I just saw it on Steam because there's a lot of bad cozy games on Steam that are just like no name, like whatever.
Yeah, it's like trying to sift through the Switch store. It's like, no, that's not quite polished enough looking for me to guess on that one.
You don't like all those porn games? Come on, dude. Get with it.
He doesn't talk about those on the show, but he loves them.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. The Midnight Walk. This is one that interested me. I like these types of dark, weird games. So this is I'll read the description. In the Midnight Walk, you awake as the Burnt One, a mysterious being who's dug themselves out of a muddy grave to find their purpose. They find it in Pot Boy. Gotta love Pot Boy, a little dormant lantern creature that you reignite and bring back to life.
But just to be clear,
you guys think this game is biographical at all?
I'm sorry, what, Travis?
You guys think this game's biographical?
I want to know about Pot Boy and the Burnt One because that's a little bit too obvious on the nose.
Well,
I mean, I can't. If I could count the number of times I've dug myself out of a muddy grave and become a burnt one, like God, man. Really, that also hits me where I live. Right after I'm done sitting on my rock,
Jesus.
I'm
moving on. For God's sakes, I'm gonna mute him, dude. We have more topics, but you just keep rambling. Stop.
Hey, if he can talk about his game. You spent
Together
raising a remaster. I'm not. Don't blame me,
Tom. I haven't even finished talking the bullets of this. This is what they do. I can't even read the bullets of the game. Together, you must venture down the Midnight Walk, a perilous, nightmarish highway, and along the way survive 5 strange tales about fire, its life-giving warmth, as well as its inherent danger. You'll outsmart ghoulish enemies, meet a fantastical cast of companions, and gaze in wonder at our handcrafted world. That's right, every asset in the game was first sculpted in clay before being 3D scanned into the game and animated in stop-motion style. And this is... Yeah, and it's playable in PSVR 2 as well, which is what interests me because I think of games like Moss or those types of games where you're kind of like navigating the environment in VR, and I think that could be very cool in stop motion style. So we'll see.
I almost certainly won't play this in VR, but I do really like Lost in Random. And so they mentioned that this team was the team that made Lost in Random, which was a little EA Originals game from a year or two back. And I thought that they had a number of interesting ideas in that game, and I'm excited to see them try again with a new game. And they certainly have the visual style to stand out amongst their peers. And I think it could be really cool. Lost in Random was a good game. It was a little bit clunky. And so I'd like to see them continue to move forward with their kind of game design elements. But to me, this is a game that you can watch out for and be excited about. I'm not going to play it in VR. I don't know that you could convince me to. I don't know that the VR shots that they showed in their little showcase here suggested that it was the kind of game that you're talking about, Ains, with like still being in 3D, like a Astrobot rescue mission or a Moss.
Yeah.
It looked like it was going to be put into first person for purposes of the VR section, and I don't know how that'll play. So
yeah,
we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. But yeah, Lost in Random was one that I was really excited about. I had it installed for a while. I never got to it, but cool ideas. But a couple other, there's a couple other games mentioned, a couple other things on PSVR 2 because they do try to continue at a bare minimum promoting PSVR 2, which is Metro Awakening, which I am actually excited about. This is in the Metro universe, a unique story, November 7th. That's launching. And then we also get Hitman World of Assassination. Dan is sadly not here, but we get that on PSVR 2 in December with 21 levels and dual wielding, along with some other unique VR stuff.
I'm not sure Dan would go for it in VR.
Oh, I
know he loves Hitman.
I think it's like, the casual audience of VR or of Hitman maybe doesn't jive with VR, but I'll play both of these games. They both seem cool, and I'm still trying to play as much VR as I can.
Yeah, this is a whole topic that we don't have to dig into right now, but like it does just feel like they tacked some VR stuff on at the end of I just don't I would love to know if Sony is happy with the performance of PSVR 2 and that be. Right, like it does not feel, it feels like they almost have to do this at the end of this show rather than this is a they're not coming out swinging with this stuff.
It's also worth stating that neither of these are exclusives. Like they're going to be on Meta Quest 3 where everybody is going to play them. Like that's just the fact of the matter.
Based on the VR Astrobot and stuff like Moss, even stuff like Trover Saves the Universe, was that the game? I'm interested in Midnight Walk on VR, but I will probably not play it there, right? And the rest of the stuff is sort of just port-ish things that are not exclusive, and I don't know, it just feels very tacked on, and I feel bad for Sony, to be honest about it all.
That's PSVR 2's lot in life. The Meta gets the better stuff. I like VR. Alchemy announced a new VR thing that is available on Meta now, and Sony didn't get it. So to me, Sony is just not invested in playing in the VR space. At some point, they decided to design this device and put it out into market, but they're not. Their hearts aren't in it.
It really sucks. And
it does.
With that, go play Asgard's Wrath 2.
We've said many times here, Tom, the kind of similar, right? Like, I like VR 2. I still use mine, but it just feels like, to your point, it's just the device that PlayStation put out there that they feel almost obligated to support now, which is not what the feeling you should get from a first-party expensive device like PSVR 2, which, by the way, I would just remind people the bundle was more expensive than the PS5, right? So, like, we've said it many times on the show. It's kind of sad.
I regret that purchase.
I still use mine.
Actually, you know what?
But
I reviewed a game on it, so does that make me whole?
Make me whole.
How many VR games do I have to get you to review for you to break even on that purchase?
I think 2, because I reviewed 1, and I think that's how much was the PSVR? Was it like more than $500?
It's $550 for the bundle.
Okay, so I'm almost even already. So that I just need to review another PSVR 2 exclusive game, and I'll break even.
Yeah. You heard it here.
Now the PS5 Pro, I don't think I'll ever break. The PS5 Pro, I don't think I'll ever break even on like that. Yeah, that's gonna be very niche.
Well, you're not going to break even on them because there's not going to be any PS5 Pro required games.
But if I can say I tried it on both consoles and here's all that stuff, then that'll be cool. But
yeah, the PS5 Pro is going to make my PSVR 2 purchase worthwhile. I can feel it.
It's going to make it seem substantial.
Yeah, that's gonna put me over the top for sure. So we've got just a couple more things to cover, but I know that Tom needed to head out here shortly. So before we let Tom do that, I just wanted to mention we were going to have a quick conversation about game reviews. I think we actually covered quite a bit based on Eric's super chat earlier. We talked about some things of like misconceptions about reviews. I would say the one, Tom, I just want to comment because Travis and I laugh about this a lot. One of the things we've had debates with people with guests on the show, not guests, excuse me, comments like in our audience of the show is around the idea that reviews should be constructive. And it's kind of always a funny conversation of like, people feel that there should be some form of fact
Do you
in
mean
a
objective?
review. Well,
Are you aimed at objective?
objective, yes. Excuse me.
Oh,
But
sure.
yeah, sorry, not constructive. Objective.
Yeah.
I'm tired. I've not slept.
Okay.
But the idea that reviews should be something more than an opinion. Do you know what I mean? And we have this
Right.
kind of conversation around like, well, there should be some sort of foundational base of a review, and then you can put your opinions on it. And then they try to break down what a foundational base would be, or can you break it up into certain criteria, or
40
you
different
know,
criteria. That's the
it's all these different things, and it's just
Yeah.
it always becomes kind of a funny conversation. And we, Travis and I think have done our best to articulate, at least from our perspective, why that's not truly possible with and what a review should really is all it's saying from an opinion standpoint. But anyway, if you want to add any kind of thoughts or your opinions on that concept of how game reviews would somehow have an objective fact about them.
Yeah.
Not to put you right on the spot, but
No, I mean, so I think part of it, and this is not everybody, because I think a younger generation says those things as well, but I think part of it is that games criticism and games media was birthed out of very frequently, not only, but very frequently licensed magazines, right? That is where that medium that's what a lot of people think about when they think about their childhood reading those magazines, is those old, like Nintendo Power. I was a huge Nintendo Power fan, but as an adult, I can look back on Nintendo Power and say, oh, that was state-sponsored media, like that was Nintendo. The reviews in Nintendo Power were trying to sell you Nintendo games to a certain extent. And there's nothing that does not denigrate what Nintendo Power did. I still loved Nintendo Power, right? And I do think that a lot of that stuff is valuable even looking back. But what it does is it blurs the line that has never fully become unblurred between games criticism and games marketing. And to a certain extent, the games critic is a sort of willing participant in the marketing machine, in that we agree to these embargoes to talk about the game when the publisher wants us to talk about the game, in order to be able to cover it ahead of time, right? And to be able to be able to play it ahead of time. And that's this not shying away from it, mutually beneficial relationship where we get access to a game to tell our readers who want to know about this game, and they get to dictate when we talk about it, so they get their marketing beat. They, to be very clear, do not get to dictate what we say in any way, shape, or form. We are a big proponent, and I think Travis can probably tell you about this sometimes, that we push back all the time on embargo restrictions. This is not a thing that gets talked about very often because it's business, and we don't want to dredge up emails we're having with business associates essentially about like what we're talking about. But we all the time we get embargoes from developers that say, hey, you can't talk about this thing, or the timing of the review is this, and we send them an email back and say, no, that doesn't make sense, right? The most common way this comes up more recently is the fake release dates that developers are doing, where it comes out on the 5th, but if you pre-order the deluxe edition, you can play 3-day early access on the 2nd, and like that's just then occasionally publishers will say, well, you can't put a score on the game until the 5th, and we'll say, absolutely not, that's insane. If I just bought the game, I could play it and talk about it and say anything I wanted, so you can't tell me I can't. Like, that doesn't make any sense. So we push back on that a lot, but what maintains is the line does get blurred in people's minds. And I think there is this desire in some people that a review should just be, tell me what the game is. I just want to know what the game is. Why is that hard for you to do? Keep your sort of opinion out of it, because the line of a back-of-the-box bullet point about what the game can do and, critiquing that thing has become blurred over time. And I don't blame people for wanting just to know about what this game is and does as their desired thing. But that's not the job of a review. The job of a review, very explicitly in our eyes, is a person plays the game and tells you about what their experience was and what they think about it and how they feel about it and how it made them feel. And, you know, that's hard to separate. It's hard to separate and I think you're totally right that you can try to find some foundation that is universally relatable. And I think there are ways to do that are or productive, but they're never going to be objective. They're always going to be based in what the person creating that foundation finds important, right? And what they value about a game. And there's always going to be that level of it. And that them liking a thing more than you isn't bias necessarily. It's just opinion. It's taste. And in the same way that we can eat, you know, I can be like, oh, I really like this drink. And you can be like, yeah, it's fine. That's, you know, the objective review of that drink would just be saying it has artificial cherry flavor. It is carbonated, you know, like that's what the objective review of that is. It's not.
You can actually read objective reviews online. People have written them where they have no opinion, and they're very funny. It's like, it is a game. It has gameplay. You can interact with it by clicking the controller buttons.
It starts to sound like a patent claim, huh?
The graphics run at 60 frames per second. You know, stuff like that.
And that's what that is.
Well, clearly we've established Ains doesn't like Lunar enough. So
yeah,
he's biased. Yeah, I'm correct. Ains is wrong.
There it is. There you go. At least we're being objective.
Yeah, and so I don't know if that is. I don't know if that helps or if that answers the question. I did see a comment that was saying somebody said, what is it? Newspin said they can't dictate what you say, but they can choose not to give you early access, etc. for the next game. That does not happen as often as you think, at least to IGN. I do think that the comment here about the smaller guys are more at risk at that is probably true, because it costs Ubisoft a lot less to just say, oh, well, we don't need to worry about them. They can't really, like, we have the weight to throw around at IGN that they can't really pull that as much. The thing I will say to that end, because I can never convince somebody just by telling you that this is not a thing that happens very much. What I will say is there are times where stuff like this comes out and we talk about it, right? It's not like this stuff happens all the time and you never hear about it. In that case specifically, of like developers pulling stuff like that, very often when it happens to us, at least at IGN, we're telling you, right? We'll tell you when, what was it? It was Suicide Squad. Suicide Squad refused to send us code at all for that game for review. And we told people, right? Because that's a thing that is notable. It was a wild outlier situation of an example. And so we said, hey, you know what? We should tell people that if they're doing this, they should know that they're doing this, right? And so, yeah, that's the only thing I can say is like, it doesn't affect, I can't speak to every site. I can't speak to smaller sites. I can't speak to YouTube content creators, all of that stuff as much. But at least for us, it is not a concern of ours. My experience working with publishers and working with developers is that as long as we are not being hateful, as long as we are not being intentionally defamatory, as long as we are giving a game a fair shot, we are giving our honest opinion, we are arguing it well, we are not being factually incorrect, the response that we will get to a negative review is generally, thank you for taking the time to review this. I'm sorry you didn't like it, right? Yeah. It's not them blacklisting us forever for a negative review, as long as that review is done earnestly and fairly. If we are just trying to blast a game, or we're like factually getting things wrong within the review, which, you know, we strive very hard to avoid, but occasionally something slips through where we got a little fact wrong, they'll let us know, and sometimes they'll be annoyed by that. But again, it's not the situation where that is resulting in this shattering of a relationship, at least in the case of what we do at IGN, because, you know, I think we're big enough that they would like the coverage still. Like I said, it is a symbiotic relationship to a certain degree. It's just that relationship does not influence the actual content of our review.
Yeah.
Which makes sense. But do you think, like, with respect to, you mentioned Suicide Squad and Warner Brothers not sending you codes, do you think that impacted your review process at all of that particular product?
No, I wouldn't say so. No. I mean, yes, in the fact that the review was later, right?
Yeah, no,
Which
I get
is sort
that.
of right, but no, it was. That's definitely the type of thing where you leave that baggage at the door, and we everyone has biases. That's 100% true. That's
human
why
being.
yeah, but like the key in my eyes, and I've said this plenty of times before, the key in my eyes is knowing your own tastes as a reviewer, knowing your own preferences, knowing what biases are affecting the review, whether that's some outside situation like that or having a shorter time with the game than one might spend with it, right? All of those things have the potential to impact the review, but we strive very hard to make sure we are considering them and that we are checking them and that we are accounting for things like that when we are going in, so that what you're getting is the opinion of this person playing the game out in a way that somebody just picking up the game at home would sort of also have that same experience, if not agree with it necessarily, but be playing it in a similar way.
Yeah, I'll also say
Yeah.
that sometimes if like a outlet doesn't give code to IGN or whatever, a lot of times the reviewer won't know that. Like Tom serves as a buffer between me, the reviewer, and like a publisher or developer a lot of times. So like if they're having beef or pushing back on embargo, like I'd say 9 times out of 10, I just don't even learn about that, and so it couldn't impact my review just because like I don't see that. I'm just playing the game, right?
But maybe I'm misremembering this one, but the Suicide Squad stuff was made into an article, right? Like there was an IGN article talking about WB problems.
I don't remember. Well, I don't know specifically what you're referencing. I think we did do an article that was like, "Where's our review?" because we knew it was going to be coming so much later. We have covered problems at WB, like our news team has done that stuff, I think. I don't know specifically, though. I'm sorry. I'm legitimately just not remembering.
No, that's totally fine. I might be misremembering. It's like the top of the year, right? Isn't it like January?
Yeah, it was early on. And Travis, sorry, what did you just say? Remind me.
Yeah, that sometimes I just don't know what the relationship is.
Yeah. And we have layers of insulation with that, where like I keep things away from Travis as the reviewer, right? And Dan, my boss, who's our director of reviews, he hears more from our EIC about publishers potentially getting mad about a thing that he never even tells me, right? Because it should not affect our review process, and it does not ultimately matter much, usually those situations. So he shields me from that. And then meanwhile, if our sales team, who we are completely disconnected from on editorial, is selling ads against a review, we do not hear about that in any way, shape, or form. We don't know who's buying the ad. So like we strive a lot to keep everything sort of cordoned off in the best way we can, and separate church and state in the best way we can, and make sure that it's like we strive to make sure that stuff is not influencing the process in any sort of negative or untoward way. It is a thing we think about a lot, right? Like it is not just a thing that we think about because, we think we're going to get caught. Like we think it is important, right, to do that stuff.
Of course.
Yeah.
No, and I've never gotten any indication that that's not the case. And I think the firewall is important. And Travis has stood up for IGN in a number of ways at a number of times on this show and elsewise. So
Unpaid,
I'm asking the questions out of curiosity, not out of trying to lead you down a path.
Yeah. I will say, like, as somebody who wrote for many years for very small outlets that probably were even smaller than Season Gaming, or about the same size, right? There's less separation when you're on a small team, like especially if you're a YouTuber where you are the advertiser and the content creator. I think that there's like an issue there. And then sometimes like, we'd review a game, and if it was made by Nintendo, because Nintendo can be pretty stingy with choosing who they want to review, which outlets they trust. Like if we had to give a score, it made everybody nervous. And sometimes my editor-in-chief would like reach out to me and be like, really? Like you really want to give this game? Sometimes the review would just get killed, because if I didn't like the game, they would just be like, well, let's just not publish a review at all then, which in a way is kind of the worst review you can get, right? Is like, oh, we're just not going to hold it. But I think there are legit concerns with like, we're a small outlet, we're kind of just building this relationship, and we don't want to get blacklisted with like a negative review. But I think that's a problem that unfortunately smaller outlets and single single person shops have to worry about a lot more than something like IGN, where like if you don't give IGN a review copy, you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot because we have a huge audience, right? So
right, and that's something I'm glad you can speak to that, because I can't. Like, I've only ever worked at IGN and PC Gamer within the industry, and then like one small site a decade ago that doesn't exist anymore, right? And so that was, yeah, I can't speak to that experience quite as much, but it's at least doesn't happen there.
So I can a bit. I think Travis is right. I haven't seen that, but I could see that being the case. You do get a little nervous at times. Like, it's possible to get nervous as you're trying to develop those relationships as a smaller site. It's one of the reasons why we don't monetize right at SG, is because I just don't want that weight to think about, changing any course of how we think about things. And we had an instance recently, actually, Sard, who's actually in our chat. She was reviewing a card builder roguelite, and it got a little hype behind it. I forget the name of it. Honestly, it's on our site. I need to go look, but she was reviewing it and basically had some major issues with it. And this is a smaller developer, and they sent me the code, and, we talked through it. And the conversation internally, right, and our SG channel was around like, well, this isn't going to be a good score. And I'm like, that's fine. To Tom's point, as long as you're honest, we can show that you put the time in and experience the game as it exists today. And, you validate those opinions, we're good to go. And what I've found in those cases is that, generally speaking, the feedback I get from the developer directly, if it's a smaller person, or the publisher, is still thanks for the coverage. Because what we're seeing nowadays, in my opinion, is that there's so many games that the smaller ones really are striving for any coverage whatsoever. So just covering the game is a big boon for them. So when I sent the review back to the publisher, the developer of the roguelite actually emailed me directly, and he thanked us for the review. And he said, I appreciate that you called some of these criticisms. He said something to the effect of, obviously the score is not where I'd want it to be, but to be fair, some of the criticisms she called out, I'm already working on. We're implementing updates to the game. And, it's just a good conversation.
Yeah, that's great.
And so I shared that back to our crew, and Sard, who wrote it, and it, made her happy and made the group happy. But that's how it should be, right? That's how it should function.
I think indie relationships are also always easier because they're just happy to get coverage at all. But
exactly.
usually the friction was with like the big publishers, where they like kind of didn't need your outlet, right?
Yeah.
And so if you're going to give a negative review and drag down the Metacritic, they're sort of like, well, then we just won't send you codes. And so, I remember my boss at one of the sites was always talking about that and just being like, look, we don't want to piss these people off, because, that's just such a bad thing to have to think about as a
no doubt
critic, and, something I was never really good at, which is why my career went nowhere for so long. 8 years, 8 years writing at small outlets, dude. It was brutal.
Yeah, never once said anything like that for us. We just don't get codes from Nintendo, so it makes it easy. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah, and I think that's strategic. I mean, you can tell which publishers are good at choosing which outlets. Like, the Starfield thing, like Xbox crushed it. They were sending to all these outlets with Xbox in their name, and there were so many reviews that were positive for them. So, I think everyone.
Starfield is good, Travis.
Well, Starfield is good, but like that's the thing is I think that Starfield situation was really eye-opening for me, at least, because they like, when you look at what the pre-release reviews of that game were compared to the post-launch reaction by a lot of people and user scores and that sort of thing, it just feels exceptionally transparent that they did what they could, as is their job as marketers of this video game, trying to sell it. I'm not like bashing them for doing this.
And they all do it, by the way. All the publishers do that.
They very much did what they could for that game.
I think of it more for movies. One of the times that you see a lot of is Marvel movies being pre-screened, right? And you'll get this social media blast of people saying whatever, Black Widow is the best thing since The Godfather. And you can usually figure out that all of these pre-screened movie appearances are from people that are already fans of the product or brand or studio or whatever. And I think that Starfield, as well as a couple of other major games, are some of the first times that I've really seen that used fully in the game space. Now, I do think Starfield is good. I think Travis gave it a 7. I probably am at an 8 with Starfield. I'm excited about tomorrow.
Travis didn't review it.
Dan Stapleton reviewed it, and he gave it a 7.
I gave it a verbal. I agree with.
Oh, excuse me. Yeah.
But Yes, I agree with you, and I think that can be a problem. I would urge people to be more attentive to when the reviews are happening, who's doing them, what their existing tilt is on this score. I do think IGN does a good job. I think you've heard me say in the Bitcast that I really like their rubric. I really like the descriptions they give to all their numbers. There's a web page I refer to pretty commonly that says what a 10 is over there, says what a 9 is. More importantly to me, says like what a 5 and a 6 and a 7 is and how those are different in their scores. And I give you a little paragraph describing what each number means. And I wish more sites went through that process because I think it is pretty transparent. And though I disagree with some of their numbers, you can understand how they got to them. And so in general, I'm in favor of IGN's approach on this stuff. And it's a shame that, yes, because we're talking about an internet and websites that generally do benefit from getting earlier access to things and having reviews go out on the day the game comes out and things like that, that we do always have to be cognizant of folks being worried about access. I don't think that would apply to anything as big as IGN or some of the other big players in game reviews, period. But I would always recommend for people to take into account that there are multiple forces with different incentives on any kind of basis, whether we're talking about news items, whether we're talking about consumer reports, reviews, critiques. Access is going to come into play. But I think the internet, and certainly people that like to hear their voices on the internet in various social media contexts, jump to conclusions that are inaccurate. And as Travis said, I think a couple weeks ago, like if Sony paid us money for that 7, they really didn't get their money's worth out of a 7, did they? Like that's not, you don't buy a 7. What is wrong with you?
Yeah.
And
yeah,
so
there was a PR
by the way, I
person-
got a response to that comment. So somebody commented to me like, "Oh yeah, they paid for that." Then I said, "Really, paying for 7?" And his response was, "Better than the 2 it deserved." So their theory is that like, however bad your game is, you have to pay like extra money per point. So I'm really fascinated by this business model. If you want to buy review scores, I'm fully open, not for IGN reviews, but for like my own personal reviews. I'll say on the show whatever you want me to say for money.
One of the funniest comments I saw about that this was years ago at this point, was this PR person I follow on Twitter who does PR for a bunch of different games, and she tweeted out, "If you could buy IGN review scores, I would be the person who is doing that because it only makes business sense to do it, and you cannot do it." And I was like, "That's a good point. That like." Probably more people would be doing this if we actually allowed it. There'd be a lot of people who would be very excited to do it. And
it would be very hard to keep quiet.
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
right.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing about conspiracy theories is the level of faith you have to have in the people orchestrating the conspiracy is like way greater than my general faith in humanity. It's like really every country, every creed, they all came together and they're like, on this we agree. We're gonna flat earth, we're gonna hide it so well from everyone. It's just crazy.
Can I also mention really quick, I know we're running out of time, but I saw a comment in the chat that was like, "Oh, can you explain the Xbox tax?" And I do want to address this because I take every I take every opportunity to tell this story. I have told Travis this story before. Dan Stapleton, our director of reviews, earlier this year, when the Xbox tax stuff, or it might have been end of last year, when that was like really in this fever pitch of people being mad. And if people haven't heard about this, they think we tax Xbox scores, lower them, and the Nintendo Pass, we give Nintendo scores higher. He took every single review that we've done from a first-party publisher since 2020, since the beginning of 2020 when we switched to the 10-point scale. He looked at all of the review scores for all of the games we published by Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo. We compared those numbers to the Metacritic average, the OpenCritic average, and the user score on the actual platform you can buy the game. So like on the Xbox store or on the PlayStation store. And we compared to our own scores, and we did a bunch of. He never ended up publishing any of this because we just wanted to we were just checking our biases. Basically, we wanted to see how much weight there was to this anger. Not only is there not an Xbox tax, and you can do all of this math yourself if you'd like to go out and do this to confirm I'm not lying here. Not only is there not an Xbox tax, on average, and to be clear, all of this is within like a point-ish of the Metacritic Open Critic score. Like we're not wildly off base to begin with in any regard. But on average, we score Xbox games very, very slightly higher than the average. We score Sony games basically dead on with the average, and we score Nintendo games very, very slightly lower than the average. And so the idea of an Xbox tax and a Nintendo pass is not only not true, it is literally statistically the opposite of true. And again, these numbers are negligibly, they're like, we are on the whole, on average for publishers, pretty close to not that that's one thing we're shooting for. Averages are just average.
What if you're leading the way, Tom? What if the taxes are built into the stats because IGN is telling people where the taxes are?
Yeah,
Man,
I guess so.
crazy.
Maybe you got me there.
I will say, I always hope I'm an outlier, and I never am. It upsets me so much. I remember, Tom, I told you that like when I gave Postal 4 a 2 out of 10, I was like, oh, this is going to be a low score. And then the only other two outlets that reviewed it gave it a 1 and a 3. And I was so upset. I was so upset. I was like, how am I again in the middle? This is unbelievable.
Yeah. Not to belabor that, right? It's just like, I do see that comment a lot, and like it is not grounded in reality. And I like that we have data that anybody can look up the data to prove that it is not grounded in reality. That's all.
I don't think the people that say those things are very grounded in reality in general. So,
well, and to be fair, again, just to be very clear, we're not shooting for the average when we review a thing either. Like, it just happens, like, again, I value Metacritic and OpenCritic as a gamer to like at a glance see kind of how people are feeling about a thing, but that does not mean that's the correct score either.
Yeah.
Sometimes we are outliers, and I always find those interesting. Like, I think we were on Death Stranding. Our Death Stranding review was pretty negative, and that was one I agreed with. But then I saw all the other reviews, and I was like, oh, wow, most people do not think that way. So
probably a 10 for me, Travis. Death Stranding is one of my favorites.
That is a wild take, but you're entitled to it. And at this point, there's so many people that like it. Clearly, there's just people...
You can go and see my tweets from the night I beat it. It's one of the few games to actually make me emotional. And
somebody clip, you can see tweets from the night I beat it.
Yeah, I beat the game.
Oh, okay.
Oh, the game. Yeah. The game. That's
what
we're talking about.
Okay,
I got it. No, Tom, that's good commentary, man. Thank you very much for that. I think Travis and I do our best, obviously, on a small kind of thing to comment about reviews and how they're organized and the methodology behind them, and do our best to kind of combat these bizarre things like the Xbox tax and other things that just get spread. But one of the other things, and I don't want to keep going because I know we've been going a while, but we hear a lot around.
Yeah, I am running out of time.
Yeah, Tom to leave like a half hour ago. Did you?
I like to check with our guests on timing because you know how we can go here. So, but anyway, we can always have you on again, of course. But I wanted to thank you for coming out. I wanted to thank you for the commentary. Good to actually have you on the show. And we do have a couple other quick things to mention, but I want to let you say your piece before heading out.
Yeah, I'm definitely happy to come back sometime. I love talking about this stuff. Like, I think that one of the best ways we combat misconceptions about how we do our reviews is by being as transparent as possible. And I believe that very genuinely, that we do not have anything to hide, and we should not act like it, right? It is obviously there's stuff we can't talk about with embargoed stuff and things, but like that's not the same as not being willing to tell you how we come to the conclusions that we do, because if you don't trust how we come to the conclusions that we do, then what are we even doing with our reviews, right?
Yeah, agreed. So Tom, again, appreciate it, man. It's been a pleasure. So why don't you tell people where they can find you, or anything else that you want to go ahead and plug before you head out?
So I don't use social media very often, but I'm at Tom R. Marks anywhere basically that it matters there. If you are a Persona fan, Take Your Time is the Persona podcast that I'm doing in real time, along with Jonathan Dornbush, who is another former IGN person.
Yeah.
That's been a lot of fun. We have an entire 50-episode season of all of Persona 5 Royal out already that we did a couple years ago. And then we're 25 episodes into Persona 3 Reload right now, and we're still going. So, yeah, that's where you can find me.
Love it.
Super cool.
Love it. Tom, thank you again, man. I know you got to get out. So we'll be in touch and just appreciate having you on, man. So
Yeah, thank
talk
you.
to you soon.
Thanks, boss.
All right. See you, man.
Bye.
Okay, let's switch over. So let's get caught up. We did have some member comments and
yeah.
super chats come in.
Hogue is Travis. Oh man,
I had to fix
I
that.
was gonna start doing a Hogue impression. I was gonna be like,
My JRPGs. My JRPGs are so good.
Why'd you go so high pitch?
that's what I hear. That's my really good Hogue impression. Great.
All right, hit us with these.
Carolyn Moscaso has been a member for 21 months and that's Carrie Nell Moscaso. OMG Hogue just unlocked a core memory with Onimusha. I played the heck out of that game back in the day. Smiling face, contented with hearts.
That's what I would rather see Capcom like have to answer questions about than Dino Crisis.
Me too.
But we'll see. Capcom is knocking them out of the park with all their remakes and remasters. I really think the Dead Rising remaster is very well done. I would love to see Onimusha. They might not have the actors like face rights anymore. So those were like real actors they used in Onimusha, weren't they?
I don't remember.
I believe so.
Yeah, I have no idea, but great games though.
They were fun.
Yeah.
My entire understanding of Nobunaga is that he had a zombie army. So,
Cardell, thank you. Console Peasant.
Console Peasant gives 5.99 euros to write quality podcast as always. Hell
Console
yeah.
Peasant. Thank you.
Hell
Appreciate
yeah.
you.
Thanks, Console Peasant.
Appreciate you. Shoosh.
Shoosh. He's been a member for 15 months and writes, IGN reviews should include dating tips. He made a correction in the comments that I respected. So I agree. I fully agree. I would love to write dating tips as a guy who was always unsuccessful at dating, but plays a lot of dating sims and am terrible at dating sims.
I want him to be related to the game itself. Okay, so you're a big fan of Bloodborne. This is the game that you should be playing when you're out there on the town.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know how in Bloodborne you just keep getting murdered again and again and again, but eventually you overcome it. That's a bit like dating, at least if you look like I do. And so I think it's important to just keep putting yourself out there, no matter how many times you get knocked down. There you go. These are the types of tips you can expect in the new box out. How it relates to dating.
You get a better understanding of the world around you and its nightmarish qualities.
There you go.
That's right.
Shoosh, thank you. And then shout out to Jeremy Wharton, who gifted 5 Hogue Law memberships on the Hogue Law channel.
Thank you, Jeremy. We need that kind of support.
Jeremy, thank you, my friend.
YouTube has been unkind to my admittedly very low level of production over the last month.
It's brutal now.
Pomps did the same over on your channel, and I received one of the memberships, which happens on occasion, and I always feel bad about it.
You should feel bad, but that's okay. Pomps is still awesome. So
hey, now I can use my tie. I can use my tie emoji again. I lose access to it on occasion.
Yeah.
I don't get it back until somebody gives me a membership.
Pomps actually said Travis always gets my gift membership. Yeah,
dude, hell yeah. Hell yeah. Thank you, Pomps. Without you, I would never be able to use my beloved emoji.
Pom, thank you, my friend. All right. Real quick.
Like the elder dating site.
Season dating. So just a couple quick things to follow up on. So we talked about the PlayStation 5 Pro. As you said, Travis and I got one. Hogue's not in on it, but it's fine. We'll be talking about that in November when they came out. But we did have our pizza bet last week. So if you missed last week's show, we bet that whoever was closest to the price of the 30th anniversary bundle, the other 2 people at some point here in the future would have to send them pizza from delivery at some point. So basically, we ended. Travis originally said $8.99. He upped it to $9.99. I said, I think $11.99. Hogue went way out in left field and said $1,994. Here we are. Travis was correct. I got excited before the show because if you translated the price in other countries, it was equating to like $1,200 US. But then, they gave US the bargain price of only $1,000. And so Travis has won the bet, and Hogue and I will have to ship him pizza at some point in time. I'm thinking about shipping a pizza kit. I'm going to buy the worst quality, ingredients and just mail them to you.
No.
So
No.
so you and D can make pizza at home. like,
Yeah, you're gonna send him some lunch leaves or whatever the heck Mr. Beast is making.
oh
Yeah,
God,
I would say
don't.
in San Francisco, if you guys are gonna, okay, so first of all, I'm amazed that I was right about the discount. I was getting nervous about this, but honestly, $9.99 is such a safe bet just in marketing and retail in general. Like if you think it's going to be near $1,000, going over it makes it a completely different game. So super stoked about that.
Yeah, but they
In
would
San
have sold out
Francisco-
anyway. So
It's true, but I feel like saying $1,000, you get bad PR. $9.99, people don't realize they're spending $1,000. So yeah, I love that. If you're going to buy me pizza in San Francisco, I think the most acceptable answers will be Signores. Quite good. Don't forget the dipping sauce. Of course, you got to get the
You're
Signore
gonna
sauce.
have to send us orders, my man.
yeah.
Or you could do curry pizza. There's a
Papa
place
John's.
Curry Sings. They do an Indian flavored pizza. If you haven't had curry pizza, highly recommend it.
You told me about this, and I told you, no way are we getting that.
I
I'm
know
good,
because
thank
you don't like Indian flavors, which is crazy to me. But
I don't like curry.
I think I should just send you something from Michigan, right? Like we have Domino's here. We have Little Caesars here. Like I think you should get a Michigan pizza from me.
Wait, you just have the branches? You don't have like
Domino's is headquartered here. Little Caesars is headquartered here.
oh my God.
Yeah.
They just own the market. You don't get to have good pizza, huh?
Oh no, we have a lot of good pizza, and I don't mind Domino's and Little Caesars to be honest, but we have a lot of Detroit style pizza that is
Well, as a former employee of Domino's Pizza Delivery Service, let me say, ride or die with those guys. Thanks for employing me for that year as a delivery guy. It was a good time.
All right. So we'll work that out, and we'll have to take some pictures and have some fun with that somehow.
I will look for your order, Travis.
Thanks. Oh
Good
yeah, should I
job.
send so what's the deal? You guys are like, I'll send you my order and then you guys are just gonna go in together on it? Is that the idea?
We're gonna do it 2 separate times, but if
Yeah.
you want us to go in,
Oh,
yeah.
what? Oh, that's sick. Hell yeah.
That could be 2 different pizzas.
All right.
Yeah.
I'll just make sure it's one pizza to be nice to you guys, and D and I will eat it together and we'll send you guys photos. Okay. So you can
Yeah,
there you go. I think that's good.
yeah,
We
that
should do
works.
this more often. I'd like to buy you guys
$9
pizza.
limit. So
$9 limit. All right, so Domino's it is.
yeah, no, it'd be fun.
Get that pizza for $6.99, Travis.
Yeah, that's right. We actually, I don't think we have a Domino's or a Little Caesars in San Francisco. I think we have one Domino's, but I've never seen a Little Caesars here.
So as we were talking, you said we should do this more often. The next bet just came to mind. So pizza bet. We could do pizza. We could do whatever. But the next bet that we should have is the open critic average for Dragon Age Veilguard.
Ooh,
So hard.
That's the point. That's the point. Yeah. So I hadn't thought about this at all. Literally, it just popped in my head as I was looking at our.
Is this
here.
Price is Right rules or just closest period?
Closest period. Yeah,
Okay.
closest up or down. Let me
I
think for a
literally
second.
think every number from 50 to 100 is probably on the table.
Oh, I think
Right.
so. Yeah, I think so.
I said earlier, I think 8 are going to be all over the place. So,
So here's
we're
the
going
thing, though. With a
open
AAA
critic, by the way, not Metacritic. Open critic.
By the way, a AAA game, I honestly think 8 is like a diss. 7 is like, people will think that the game is terrible if it's anywhere in the 70s. That would be like a disaster. 80 people would be like, it's kind of not good. That's how people think of it.
All right, I'm ready. I got mine.
Is Paul Tassi reviewing this game? Because I have to take his screwed up system into account.
It's not live service.
That's true.
Is Paul Tassi reviewing any games right now? I mean, he's just getting angry at people on Twitter.
I mean, that's always been his main, but I think he also reviews games. Let's see.
I've got my score. I'm ready.
All right. Should we all like write it down so that we're not playing with each other, or do we want to?
Yeah. Let's do that.
We should
Playing
write
with
it
each
down.
other. Let's not clip that.
I just don't. Sometimes people make their guesses based on what other people guess, and I'm saying I think that's kind of cheesy. So
I do not have a pad handy. I'm putting it on my phone, so that's why I'm pulling this out.
It's fun as well. I have it on in notes.
Yep, me too. All
Nice. Ready? 3, 2, 1.
Oh, you good?
Go. Right.
77, 79, and 82. All right. Let me note this down. 77 Hogue, 79 me, 82, Travis. Okay, got it.
Still pretty good cluster there.
Yeah.
Somebody's gonna be real wrong, or we're all gonna be really wrong, or we're all gonna be kind of right in the middle.
I've already lost because if it's under
was
77,
hard,
Hogue wins.
That's not true. What if it's 79 or 80? If it's 80, you and I would be tied.
Yeah, so it can be 2 points for me to win.
Yeah, I honestly, if I would have not known you were doing 79, I would have guessed 80. I almost guessed 80, and you would have been really screwed if I did that. I'm gonna say 80.
I think I have 3. 79, 80, 80. No, because 81 you'd still win. I have 2 points I can win. Oh my god.
2 points.
This is terrible.
Yeah.
Apparently I'm sending food for the rest of my life here. All right.
I mean, dude, you can afford it. You live in like a 9-story house or whatever.
All right. So on that note, I think we'll close out. The only other thing I was just going to mention 2 seconds is around Tokyo Game Show. We didn't think there was a whole lot to mention here, but we did want to compliment the fact that we've got Final Fantasy Pixel Remaster and Tales on Xbox, which is cool to see. Hogue, you know more about these than I do, so please feel free to elaborate if there's more to say.
Well, I mean, the Mana series coming to the Xbox Game Pass, I think, is good news for people that are excited for Visions. The Final Fantasy Pixel remasters are fantastic ways to play the original 6 Final Fantasy games. And so I'm glad to see them on Xbox as well. I think Xbox fans maybe wanted a few more Square Enix announcements, but Square Enix, even more than Nintendo, moves to the beat of its own drummer. And so if you're going to get Remake or Rebirth or 16 over on Xbox, Square Enix will probably announce it in the middle of the night on a Thursday in November. So I hope you do get those games. I enjoy those games. But be excited about the Pixel remasters because they are really good versions of really good games.
Yeah, not only are they on Xbox, they're actually on Game Pass because I logged on after Tokyo Game Show. I hadn't watched the show yet.
Pixel remasters are? I don't think so.
Sorry, the Tales games. And
yeah.
So I logged on and I saw that I could play the Tales games on Xbox and on Game Pass. I was like, oh shit, this is kind of cool. So that was I'm excited to maybe fiddle around with those a little bit.
Good drop. Yep. So, and then Shattered Space is tomorrow. As we are talking tomorrow. So we'll talk more about that next week with Starfield.
You're going to play it, Hogue? You're going to play it?
I am going to play it, although I might be a step or two behind because I'm on like my 4th character and I don't think they have the levels to actually access this planet. And I did see that the news cycle caught up to what we had discussed when this was originally kind of broken, that this was mostly going to be on one planet. And I had said that it was a smaller DLC than I thought it would be. That there were a number of news articles this past week about the fact that Shattered Space is only taking place on the Varun homeworld. And I do think that it's probably a little less grandiose than I would have hoped for from a Starfield DLC. I believe Travis last time said, well, it's an underperforming game with an underperforming DLC or an understated DLC or something along those lines. And that might well be the case. I still like Starfield quite a lot. I'm still looking
forward. I like it too, for what it's worth. I've spent 200 hours with that game. It'll be a part of me for a while. And I do want to know more about the Varun. Like, they were one of the most interesting factions of the game, and you saw almost nothing of them, which was super disappointing. So I'll probably wait to hear how people feel about it and then play it based on that. But yeah, I wouldn't mind jumping back in.
Yeah, I think it'll be good. And I think Starfield was good. And I think the little lore videos that we got about what Shattered Space is going to be about, like the capital of the Varun has been like disappeared in some kind of multidimensional vortex or whatever. And I don't know any more than that. That's literally in their teaser trailer. I suspect it's the beginning of the DLC, but like that's interesting. And I hope it's great. But cool. Yeah, I got more Diablo 4 to play. I have more to play of Beyond Galaxy Land, Dead Rising, Epic Mickey, Skull and Bones, everything that I've mentioned today. As well as probably playing the Metaphor demo again, because that was a lot of fun.
Also, Vessel of Hatred, I think, is coming out this upcoming week, is it not?
Vessel of Hatred
October 8th.
Oh, wow.
So someone just asked, Newspin, I think, asked, so October 8th for Vessel of Hatred. Tune in next week is what I'll say. Next
week or this week?
Tune in next week for discussion it does not release until after next week's show.
But the embargo lifts, so people will have played it.
Well, I don't know. I don't know
I'm
who's
not-
playing Vessel of Hatred.
Yeah, I'm not saying that out loud, but sure, just tune in next week.
It was a question, but yeah, okay.
Yeah, so that'd be good. We'll talk obviously about Shattered Space next week as well. On the season gaming side of the house, stay tuned for Vessel of Hatred coverage. And then we also have a review going up of an indie horror game you may be interested in called Numata. That's coming out. It may actually be out right now. I forget the release date on that. Okay, thank you. Our review will be going up very early, if not tomorrow, by Tuesday on that one as well. I don't think it's very good. At least our reviewer didn't think so.
It was one of the games I was evaluating on the PlayStation Store just based on the trailers, and I had that concern. That's why I went with Beyond Galaxy Land instead.
Okay. Yeah, I think we were talking yesterday about it, and he was like, yeah, he was looking at the very low end of the spectrum of the scores. So I don't know where it landed, but you can check that out soon. And then, of course, my ridiculous video on the 1-to-1 scale Elden Ring Dark Moon Greatsword is up. It is absurd and hilarious, but you can check that out as well on the channel. So, Hogue, I heard a little rumor bird me. We've been talking too long. YouTube recommended to me a little thing called virtual legality. I hadn't heard of that before. Something on your channel, something happened.
Yes. Well, folks that were watching the Bitcast last week saw that I gave a little preview of what this week's virtual legality would be, talking about Pal World versus Nintendo and patent law in the United States and Japan versus copyright law and various other things. We had a wonderful video this last week in virtual legality, about an hour long, where we got to talk with the community about some of their patent questions and go over some of the things that I wanted to address with respect to Pal World. And so if any of that interests you, come over to the channel and check out a brand new video in virtual legality for the first time in like 3 months, I think. I'm trying to get better at putting more content out on the channel. I did once make videos quite often, about 12 a week. Now we're at 1 every month, but we're going to try to increase that rate. So I expect that I'll be doing another video this week. Hopefully that will be in fact the case. Come check out the Hogue Law YouTube channel for virtual legality, hangouts and headlines, and more. Very excited to be doing content again.
Next time on virtual legality. Just how he
Not
says
a bad Hogue, actually.
And then it plays the Seinfeld theme. Boom, 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 boom. By the way, Ash pointed out in our chat on our Dragon Age. God, dude, I got to get some sleep. Our Dragon Age bet that if it's a 78, it's 1 point. It's directly between me and Hogue, 77 and 79. I would like to propose that if that happens, Travis has to send food to us both.
I think that's fair.
Okay. All right.
78 on the dot?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I won last bet. So
I mean, the odds of that are so low.
The odds that are super low, and I could
think,
justify it because you guys both will have sent me pizza by that point. So
I do think with the clustering, we may want to set, like, what is the date that we are locking in this number?
It's locked. It's done.
It's locked.
No, I mean the date for the review score.
Oh, that's a great question. Because
is it like close of business launch day? Is it the Saturday?
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah, good question. Why don't we go what does it release on a Tuesday or Friday? What? I haven't even looked. What's Halloween this year?
I don't know. Let's look it up. I'll ask Google.
You want to be on release date?
It's a Thursday. Thursday. What the hell?
That means the embargo is probably going to be the Tuesday that week.
Yeah, so let's go the following Monday, November 4th. How's that sound? That get through the weekend, so the smaller sites, they don't have big waiting anyway, but you know what I mean.
You want to do it on Monday before after the show has happened? Shouldn't it be maybe that Saturday?
Oh, the third day. Yeah,
Yeah.
the 3rd of November 3rd. Okay,
that way we can talk about it on the show right when the game comes out, you know.
Sure. Okay. Cool. All right, there you go.
Cool. The 3rd.
All right. Now I'm hoping for a 78. We'll see. Travis, what you got?
Yeah, I was just reading the embargo guidelines, and I have nothing to talk about at all. You guys, you bros,
tune in next week.
I've got nothing. No, I'm writing a review tonight. I'm done playing a game that is embargoed, and I'm writing the review, and it will be available later this week. I think on Thursday or something. And
cool.
It's a really cool game that I'm excited to talk about.
Cool. And we'll close out with the poll that we started at the top of the show
I
about
hate you.
Travis investing in Elgato as a company. So a lot of votes, and 67% say, of course, you should invest in Elgato. And then 33% say, likely, yes, you should. So pretty much 100% of people think you should invest further in Elgato.
I'm going to assume that they meant invest in their destruction, which I will be doing. I'm going to create an Elgato specific terror group, and our goal is going to be to bring down the Elgato Corporation. That's our group. Yep.
Wow,
good time.
That's a note to close on right there.
For sure.
And on
Absolutely.
that note, the nearly 3 hour and 10-minute Bitcast comes to a close. Thanks for chat. You've been great. Thanks for hanging out on a long show with us today. Shout out to Tom, of course. Appreciate the conversation and the insight into kind of the review process at IGN. Tom's awesome. And we'll have him back on at some point, of course. But appreciate everyone as always. I hope you have a great week of gaming. Obviously, come by next week. We'll have a lot more to say about certain things. Until then, enjoy your week, play some great games, and we'll see you next Sunday. Peace.